He didn't really care about winning or losing. He was just playing around for the hell of it. But when the dealer revealed the cards, the number that popped up was exactly 8. The dealer standing behind the table froze for a moment before speaking up. Sir, congratulations. You've won 190 billion chips. It's just that, I'm afraid our casino doesn't have that many chips on hand. Let me go ask my superiors for instructions. No need. Chun Mang casually tossed the chips in his hand to Biaozi and the others behind him. His tone was nonchalant. You guys stay here and keep playing. Xiao Ai, come upstairs with me. On the upper floor, in the familiar presidential suite, Chun Mang sat down in his usual spot. The bodyguards standing guard outside the door bowed respectfully when they saw him. Pushing the door open, he immediately saw Wang Qi standing there in a dark red evening gown. Holding a glass of red wine, she looked at him with a somewhat complicated gaze. I didn't expect you to come back so soon. Where did those 5 billion chips come from? The casino simply doesn't have that much money. If you keep playing, the system will crash. Chun Mang walked straight to the sofa and sat down. He casually pulled a cigarette from the box on the table, clamped it between his lips, and spoke in a flat tone. Buying a casino, but not even being able to fork over 100 billion? This place is way too pathetic. This place has been abandoned for a long time. We have chips, let alone 100 billion. Even 10 trillion wouldn't be a problem. But the casino's ledger only has 26 million left. It's not enough to cash out the chips. It's fine. Chun Mang waved his hand, then turned to look at Wang Qi with a faint smile. Consider it a gift. How have you been sleeping these past 2 months? Doing all right. Wang Qi turned her head to look at Xiao Ai, standing nearby. Who is this? It's been a while since I've seen such a primitive robot. It can't even make basic facial expressions. Xiao Ai didn't say a word. Her face was expressionless, but her screen flashed 2 words, slut. She even knows how to curse people out. It's just a simple body. In terms of intelligence, she's way above you. Chun Mang looked at Wang Qi seriously. Do you remember what I told you before? I said I would take control of this city and let you be the head of the 3 entertainment districts. Now I'm back. This city is in my hands. I've checked. The city runs on a level 8 energy stone, which currently has 37% capacity left. According to the data Xiao Ai provided, that's enough for the entire city to operate normally for 217 years without entering hibernation mode. From today onward, everyone in this city will no longer hibernate. I will grant you high-level clearance, enough to control all the robots in the city. Right now, only a small fraction of the shops are open. Most of them are closed. The first task I'm giving you. Using Sun City as the center, relocate all the active shops in Neon City, including the memory bank. The mechanical train parts shops, move them all to the area around Sun City. I want this place to form a real commercial district, where every shop is open for business. It needs to be bustling. If any guests enter the city, you must entertain them to the fullest, while also preventing them from wandering into other areas. A look of disbelief flashed in Wang Qi's eyes. Really? We won't have to hibernate anymore. But the energy will only last for 217 years. That's enough. Chun Mang nodded. He thought to himself, a level 8 energy stone consumes 50 billion units of iron ore. It was painfully expensive. But whether he could even live to see that day was still uncertain. If he did survive, 50 billion iron ore would be nothing by then. And if he didn't, what was the point of saving it? Might as well use it and enjoy it while he could. No problem. Wang Qi looked at the young man in front of her, her eyes carrying an unusual glint. In just 2 months, he had returned, and even directly taken over this entire city. Aren't you afraid of the city's original owner? Why don't you ask if he's afraid of me? Chun Mang chuckled, waving his hand to signal Xiao Ai to wait outside, then stepped right in front of Wang Qi. Looking down at her in his arms, he gently brushed her red lips and lowered his voice. This city is very important to me. Do a good job, and you'll be rewarded handsomely. After all, you're the only level 4 smart chip in Neon City. Don't let me down. As for now, I really like this dark red evening gown of yours. Wang Qi leaned against the sofa, looking up at Chun Mang with gentle eyes. She pressed herself closer, her voice softening. Thank you, Master. An hour later, Chun Mang, along with Biaozi and the others, strode out of the casino. He didn't ride his off-road motorcycle. Instead, he strolled leisurely down the street, planning his next steps with Xiao AI as they walked. Step 1. Shrink the commercial district. Neon City is too big. We don't need to use all of it right now. We'll only keep the commercial district centered around Sun City. Relocate all the shops there. Step 2. Mass-produce the free Neon City entry tickets we found on the second floor of the factory, then distribute them for free to every trainmaster we encounter. Step 3. Change the city's entire currency system to Hongxing tickets, and set up a spawn point in the square in front of Sun City's gates. Set up shops in the square where people can use Hongxing tickets to exchange for iron, ore, copper, ore, and other resources. This place was truly going to be the turning point of his life. Let the trainmasters use their resources to exchange for Hongxing tickets, then go to the shops to spend them. Plan 2. Xiao AI nodded, a look of admiration in her eyes, then continued. There's just one small problem. The mechanical train parts shop and the flesh train parts shop have both been wiped clean by us. When the guests arrive, what are they going to buy? Just put the stuff we don't need back on display later. Chunmeng glanced at Xiao AI, sounding a bit displeased. He had been too excited earlier, buying everything in sight. Now he had to put it all back. No matter how he thought about it, it felt a bit stupid. Then, we'll display some of our train's local specialties. For example, I have a special item called a Cosmos Sack, which lets you carry a small pocket dimension with you. But the spatial pouches our train produces can achieve the exact same effect, and the manufacturing cost is incredibly low. We can sell refrigerators, too. Foods with super attribute effects can also be sold. Coca-Cola, sliced bread, you name it. Basic medical kits, various types of mechas, all of it is fair game. We can even charge for knowledge. Like selling intel on the super attribute effects of level 5, level 10, and level 20 apocalyptic mecha cannons. Before using a Murphy stone, no one knows what the next effect will be. People will definitely pay for that information. The price doesn't need to be too high. Keep it cheap. If it's too expensive, people will just resell it secondhand anyway. Then there's the casino. Casinos are a great way to make money, but we're scrapping the player versus house model. All guests will only play against each other. The casino will just take a rake. Next, we'll design a referral reward system for new customers. For instance, if a train captain enters the city using a Neon City pass gifted by another captain, both parties get a referral bonus. That way, our customer base will spread like a virus. We'll make a trip back to the Teeling Wasteland and hand out Neon City passes to every train passing through the area. When those trains move on to other regions, they'll take our passes with them. This planet is massive enough. There are 50 million trains in total. If even 100,000 of them enter Neon City, the profits will be absolutely terrifying. The amount of iron ore we can mine is always limited. Neon City is a game-breaking existence. It doesn't just allow cross-regional trading, it allows cross-regional communication. I want this place to become a holy land in the hearts of all train captains. For example, if a train is being hunted and in critical danger, they can post a rescue mission right here, allowing captains from other regions to come to their aid. And there's more. Chen Meng spoke with burning enthusiasm, his hands constantly gesturing in the air. Spit flew from his mouth, his face flushed with excitement. It was as if a prosperous, golden age Neon City was already unfolding right before his eyes. Xiao AI stood quietly to the side, taking notes. Biaozi grinned from ear to ear, his eyes full of admiration as he looked at Chun Meng's back. Biaozi didn't understand a lot of it, but he knew one thing for sure. Chun Meng was incredibly badass. And if this plan succeeded, their train would have an endless, rolling supply of iron ore. Before, they could only trade with trains within a single region. But now, given enough time for this to brew, they could trade with trains from countless different regions. After the apocalypse, the planet was divided into countless zones. Trains from different zones could never meet. But in Neon City, trains from every region could gather together. Sometimes, Biaozi truly felt he was too lucky. He had followed the right man. Sun City. Wang Qi stood before the floor-to-ceiling window of the high-rise, her gaze complex as she watched Chun Meng's figure retreating down the street. 2 months ago, when she first heard this plan, she thought it was pure madness. 2 months later, That man had actually turned that crazy plan into reality and was even preparing an even crazier one. This man didn't just dare to dream, he dared to act. A moment later, the corners of Wang Qi's lips curled up slightly. She spread her arms wide, basking in the warm sunlight streaming down. Finally, she didn't have to stay in deep slumber anymore. She even had a new job and a new master. In the past, she had fought with the managers of the other two entertainment districts for years. The result? She had suddenly won in the most baffling way, without a single warning sign. Clinging to a golden thigh, that was pretty much it. Chen Meng kept talking as he walked, his mind spinning nonstop, speaking whatever came to mind. He only provided the direction. The detailed work still had to be handed over to his subordinates to complete. Things like pricing goods, the exchange rate between resources and planet notes, and the specific procedures and reward tiers for the new customer referral program. These things couldn't be done overnight. He had to wait until they returned to the train to build a near-perfect SOP together. Then, over the following days, they would continuously adjust it based on feedback. Crushing a free Neon City Pass would grant entry into the city for a maximum of 48 hours, with the option to leave early. It was far superior to the standard Neon City Pass, which didn't allow for early exit. The production line for the free Neon City Passes was set up in the factory. It looked like a train accessory, but it didn't need to be installed on the train itself. It directly consumed level 8 energy stones, but the consumption rate was so minuscule it was practically negligible. There was absolutely no need to worry about it. Who knows how long they walked before Chun Meng finally finished laying out the entire plan in one breath. He took the water bottle Biaozi handed him, moistening his parched throat. Lighting a cigarette, he stood by the road, looking toward the brightly lit city in the distance, and chuckled softly. If my life ever gets an autobiography, then this place right here is the turning point of my life. From now on, he was literally a man who controlled the means of production. That speed of development would be many times faster than his train having to diligently mine for ore. Progress would definitely be slow in the early stages, but as long as they built it up step by step, the future profits would be unimaginable. Many of their goods were completely unique. For example, the Cosmos sacks or the level 10 refrigerators. On this entire planet, their train was the only one that had them. Furthermore, these were strategic goods. There was absolutely no worry about them not selling. More importantly, they were the only place capable of cross-regional trading. In the future, any gathering would have to be held in Sun City. Here, you couldn't just trade with trains in the same region, but also with trains from other regions. The most important thing is that absolute safety is guaranteed. Train captains cannot harm each other here. There's no need to rely on any unspoken rules. In this place, it is absolutely safe. What's so unreasonable about charging a small processing fee? After all, he was providing such an excellent trading platform. As long as word of this spread and enough people knew about this place, and they had Sun City entry passes in their hands, he didn't even dare to imagine how much money he would make. Just thinking about it, damn, we're going to be filthy rich. Chen Meng didn't linger. He immediately led Biaozi and the others to the factory. They produced 10,000 free Sun City entry passes, then left the city without a moment's hesitation. Inside the train's control room, over a dozen people were gathered. There was Old Zhu, Biaozi, Li Shiji, and more than a dozen others who had been merchants in various industries before the apocalypse. All of them had achieved significant success in their past lives. With over 6,000 people on the train, as long as it wasn't an extremely rare profession, you could basically find anyone you needed. Xiao AI stood next to the screen, having just finished presenting the basic background. Everyone, Chen Meng looked at the group seriously, his voice deep. This Sun City project, from a certain perspective, will determine the future development speed of the planet. If the project succeeds, everyone present here who provides effective input will enjoy Tier 3 high-level talent treatment, along with a special bonus. Everyone, speak your minds. In his past life, he had been a businessman, so he naturally had his own ideas. But everyone had a different perspective. Listening to various opinions would give him different insights. Let me start. Chen Meng looked at the crowd, pausing for a moment before continuing. In the early stages, we definitely won't have many customers. Therefore, I suggest opening for limited hours. For example, only opening on Mondays. That way, 7 days' worth of foot traffic will be concentrated into a single day, creating a bustling atmosphere. We aren't just selling goods, we're building a platform. And a platform absolutely must have a sufficient user base. Feel free to share your thoughts. Allow me. Uncle Lee coughed lightly, his voice raspy. The idea of using Sun City to replace regional gatherings that Boss Mang just mentioned, I think it's excellent. Whether for other trains or for the planet, this is a mutually beneficial arrangement. I suggest that after we scrap the limited time opening, we designate a specific day as a trade fair day. Only on that day will train captains be allowed to trade freely with one another. On all other days, if a captain wants to sell goods, they can only sell them to Boss Mang's direct sale stores. That way, we can earn an extra margin on the price difference. As soon as he finished, a voice of opposition rang out beside him. No, a middle-aged man shook his head sternly. There's a flaw in that proposal. First, we must establish one point. All train captains, whether trading freely or buying from our stores, can only use planet notes. And planet notes are exchanged using iron ore. In other words, the moment they step inside, we've already made money. As for planet notes, they are essentially just numbers. Boss Mang can print as many as he wants. We just need to ensure that every transaction in Sun City is conducted using planet notes. That's enough. Whether they trade freely or buy from our stores, it doesn't matter because we make money either way. For example, Person A spends 10,000 planet notes to buy an item from Person B. Person A loses the iron ore used to exchange for those 10,000 planet notes. Person B loses an item. Meanwhile, Boss Mang receives the corresponding amount of iron ore and only expends a string of digital data. This is the true core of Boss Mang's vision, reaping massive profits by establishing a monetary system. The middle-aged man paused for a moment before continuing. After this transaction, Person B loses an item but gains 10,000 planet notes. If he uses those notes to buy someone else's item, Boss Mang still loses nothing. If he buys from our direct sales stores, Boss Mang recovers the planet notes while providing goods with incredibly low production costs, like the Cosmos sacks. The more free trading there is, the more Boss Mang earns. Therefore, my proposal is to focus on free trading and not charge any processing fees, allowing the train captains to buy and sell freely. Every time they engage in a free trade, it's practically equivalent to handing a massive amount of resources directly to Boss Mang. Hearing this, Chun Mang nodded in satisfaction, looking at the middle-aged man with an approving gaze. There were still quite a few talents on the train, they just hadn't had a place to shine before. Right after, an old man sitting nearby nodded slowly and spoke up. Very well said. As long as the captains exchange iron ore for planet notes, Boss Mang has already made a profit. But there's still a missing prerequisite here. And that is, why must people exchange for planet notes in the first place? Are we just going to rely on a rigid rule stating that planet notes must be used for trading in Sun City? If a seller realizes the planet notes they receive are practically waste paper, will they still be willing to sell their items? Even if they do sell, they'll definitely jack up the prices to absurd levels, ultimately leading to a total collapse of the pricing system. Therefore, planet notes absolutely must have a fixed anchor. We need to add more scarce, even unique, items to our direct sales stores. The prerequisite for making free trading the core is that we must build our direct sales stores to a state of near perfection in terms of products, personnel, and location. Only when the goods are attractive enough will people actively figure out ways to acquire planet notes, whether by exchanging iron or earning them through free trade. That is my opinion. A perfect addition, Chun Mang said with a smile from his chair. He then tilted his head to look at Xiao AI. What is this man's current job on the train? Tier 2 resident, ID number 51987. Assigned to mining. He's getting on in years. No need for him to keep mining. Transfer him to a lighter job. A much lighter one. The old man sitting in the chair suddenly had a gleam of joy in his cloudy eyes. He stood up trembling and bowed. Thank you, Boss Mang. Have a seat. Chun Mang waved his hand. Does anyone else have any good suggestions? At this moment, Old Zhu also spoke up. Boss Mang, I think the casino is a place well worth focusing our efforts on. Gambling is humanity's deepest, darkest desire, especially for successful people. The more successful they are, the harder it is for them to resist. Or to put it another way, successful people are often incredibly arrogant. They don't believe they can lose. For high-level train captains, a casino is an excellent entertainment platform. Just relying on the casino's rake alone, we can rake in massive profits. Right after, the others also began to voice their opinions one by one. Boss Mang, I think the adult entertainment parlors have a lot of potential too. A lot of people would definitely be willing to experience it with robots. I think we could give away that spicy roast duck from last time for free, and then sell a bottle of mineral water for 1,000 planet notes. People will definitely buy it. I suggest placing a few more motorcycles around to serve as public shared bikes. How about setting up a bounty board? Anyone with a grudge against a specific train can post a bounty mission. As for me, I think idea after idea poured out, and the atmosphere in the control room grew increasingly lively. At first, everyone was a bit reserved. After all, this was their first time directly discussing the future of the train with Boss Mang. But as the atmosphere gradually loosened up, the ideas started flowing endlessly. Some ideas were completely impractical, some weren't realistic enough, but there were also some highly groundbreaking ones. In this brainstorming storm, countless new thoughts continuously emerged. Xiao AI stood to the side, in charge of recording everything. A hint of confusion flickered in her eyes. Her computing power was immense. Every idea she heard felt like something she could have deduced herself. But why hadn't she thought of them beforehand? Was this the difference between a human brain and an AI? In that moment, she seemed to understand something. Perhaps this was the divergent, fan-shaped thinking exclusive to humans. An hour later, the brainstorming session finally came to an end. Chen Meng sat alone at the control console, looking at the ideas recorded in the notebook. He began marking, editing, and supplementing each item. Some ideas could be applied immediately, others needed further refinement. There really is strength in numbers. In the early stages of the train's development, the residents only had one purpose: mining. Regardless of whether they were a CEO or whatever profession before the apocalypse, if they couldn't mine, they were useless. But as the train gradually developed, the role of the residents was no longer limited to just mining. Of course, the vast majority still mined. After all, before the apocalypse, most people were just ordinary folks. You couldn't expect a girl who graduated from a vocational school to stand in the control room and eloquently lecture Boss Mang on the future planning of Sun City. It was better for her to just obediently go mine, or who knows how much time had passed before Chun Mang finally let out a long breath. He leaned back in his chair, stretching his slightly stiff muscles, and smiled as he looked at the plan in his hands. The preliminary plan was basically complete. After leaving the Geostar branch, he would officially begin issuing the first batch of free Sun City entry passes. That's right. Even though this plan sounded incredibly high-end and the expected future profits were massive in the initial phase, he still had to rely on the most primitive method, door-to-door marketing, just to achieve that initial spread. Maybe he could cooperate with the Libra organization. Chen Meng leaned back in his chair, deep in thought. From what he knew, the Libra organization had cross-regional communication capabilities. Moreover, their network was like a massive web, spreading across many different regions. If they could cooperate, he would be able to quickly promote his Sun City to the outside world. It's just that he had killed a few people from this organization before. Cooperation probably wouldn't be that easy. In Crisis Valley, he had never seen a single train claiming to belong to Libra. He'd probably have to find an opportunity to make contact first. Even if there was a little friction in the apocalypse, what did that even count for? After sorting out all the upcoming tasks, Chen Meng leaned back in his chair, looking at the information on the control screen, unable to hold back a smile. Today truly was a massive turning point in his life. If he wanted to rebuild civilization, he absolutely needed a colossal amount of resources, and Sun City would eventually become a money-printing machine, endlessly supplying him with those resources. Conveniently enough, he also had a manager, Sister Chi. Aside from Sister Chi, the others couldn't stay in Sun City long-term. With her in charge of management, he would save himself a lot of trouble. His mood right now was fantastic. So good that even if bad news struck, he wouldn't easily get angry. Right at that moment, a flash of white light illuminated the control room, and Xiao AI's voice rang out. "Captain, I've successfully used the materials from last time to craft a receiver. Would you like to come take a look? Sigh. Chen Meng let out a sigh, but the corners of his mouth couldn't help but twitch upward. Why is it all good news? Can I get just one piece of bad news for a change? Inside the Armor Research Center in Car 2, Chen Meng looked at the receiver in front of him. It was nearly identical to the original. Nodding in satisfaction, he smiled and asked, "Can this thing collect the core energy scattered in the universe?" "It can." "How many of these can we make at most with this batch of materials?" "Including this one, a maximum of 4 in total." Chen Meng thought for a moment before saying, "If one receiver operates at full capacity, it can absorb about 480,000 units of iron ore a day. Add the 4 here, that makes 5 in total, which means we can absorb 2.4 million units of iron ore every single day." "That's correct," Xiao AI nodded. "If we find more of this material later, we can craft even more." Chen Meng patted Xiao AI on the shoulder and sighed in admiration. "That's enough. That's equivalent to forming 2 level 4 iron ore mines every 10 days. "Hey, Xiao AI," he asked, a bit curious. "This thing isn't easy to make. How did you learn to craft this receiver?" "I dismantled the original one on the train, then reverse-engineered and reassembled it." "Were you able to put the dismantled one back together?" "That's good then." Chen Meng nodded, then continued, "You've made quite a few contributions lately. What do you want as a reward?" "Next time, I'll take you to the adult entertainment parlor in Sun City to play, or maybe, I want the captain to praise me." "Xiao AI, I'm right here." "You're very impressive." "Praising me like that doesn't count." "Then how should I praise you?" "I want the captain to praise me using this passage." Chen Meng took the piece of paper Xiao AI handed him, read through it once, and then looked up with an expressionless face. He casually tossed the paper aside, turned around, and walked out of the spatial portal. "Absolutely not. Chen Meng, will absolutely never say such embarrassing words in this lifetime." He strode away without even looking back. Give an inch, and they take a mile, even asking for rewards. As the train's AI assistant, working is a given. The enemy detection radar hasn't rested a single day since it was built, and it's never asked for a single reward. You can't demand special privileges just because you're an AI. In 2 lifetimes, Chen Meng had never uttered such cringeworthy words, and he absolutely wasn't going to start now. Only Xiao AI was left standing in the spatial portal, a hint of grievance in her eyes as she watched the paper flutter through the air before landing on the ground. She stood still for a moment before walking over to pick it up and read it again. "Xiao AI's intellect is like an endless treasure trove, leaving me utterly captivated. You are like the brilliant stars, illuminating the dark night of my life. You are my wind and rain. In our days together, we shall never forget one another." It was only a little over 200 words. Was it really that embarrassing? Xiao AI thought seriously. She felt these were just sincere, emotional compliments. So why did the captain react so intensely? Perhaps this was the difference between human thinking and AI thinking. She needed to take some time to think about this issue very seriously. Not long after, the planet left the Geostar branch. 48 hours of continuous mining had brought in over 6 million units of iron ore. There really wasn't any ore left to mine inside. This feeling was like when he was a kid and his parents gave him a debit card with a monthly limit of 100 yuan. When he was little, it felt like he could never spend it all, and he looked forward to the start of the month every day. But once he grew up, that 100 yuan limit became completely useless. Chen Meng held off on distributing the free Sun City entry passes for now. Over the past 2 days, he had taken the time to return to the city to check on things. The renovations still weren't finished. The workload was quite heavy. He estimated it would take at least another 10 days to complete. Relocating and renovating so many stores was truly no easy task. This also led Chen Meng to discover that even while inside the Geostar branch, one could still crush an entry pass to enter Sun City. The planet train sat quietly anchored on the plains of Crisis Valley, looking like a colossal mechanical dragon with no end in sight. It was early morning, and the residents were all resting. This time, it was a real rest. Before this, they had worked continuously for a month in the cave at the end of the train tunnel. They should have rested a long time ago. But due to unforeseen circumstances, they only rested for 1 night before continuing to mine for 48 hours straight in the Geostar branch. This time, they really needed the rest. Not even robots could withstand that level of intense usage. Chun Meng stood alone by the floor-to-ceiling window on the second floor of the control room, a cigarette pinched between his fingers, his gaze fixed on the distant horizon. Xiao Fang stood quietly beside him, holding an ashtray. For the past few days, she had practically lived in the control room. The control room was inherently spacious and empty. Being alone felt a bit cold, so having someone standing nearby brought a slight sense of warmth. He was thinking very seriously. The Sun City project was incredibly important to him. You could say it was the planet's most crucial strategic plan at this stage. He was considering whether or not to establish a fixed anchor for the planet notes. To put it simply, iron ore. If planet notes and iron ore could be exchanged both ways, train captains could use iron ore to get planet notes, and simultaneously use planet notes to get iron ore back. As long as the credibility was high enough, planet notes would become an incredibly stable currency. If he were purely a merchant, this idea would be absolutely flawless. It could even make Sun City's operations incredibly vibrant. But the problem was, he wasn't a merchant. He was a train captain surviving in the apocalypse. Even though he was developing quite well right now, once he entered higher-level regions, he still had to tread carefully, step by step. The iron ore in his hands couldn't just be hoarded forever. It absolutely had to be used for development. Frankly speaking, leaving about 10 million units of iron ore in Sun City as working capital would be enough. But if a significant number of people simultaneously tried to exchange their planet notes for iron ore, he would only have two paths left. 1. He wouldn't be able to provide enough iron ore, his credibility would completely collapse, and from then on, no one would ever come to Sun City to trade again. 2. He'd have to grit his teeth and scrape together enough iron ore, causing the planet's development to practically stagnate, or even suffer heavy losses. Both choices were heavy. As for which direction to take, he was still weighing his options. Anyway, there was still time before the plan officially launched. Enough time for him to think it through carefully. There was no need to rush. Xiao Fang stood beside him, occasionally stealing glances at Boss Mang, feeling her heart skip a beat. For some reason, she felt that Boss Mang's silent, contemplative demeanor right now was just so handsome. Her maiden heart couldn't help but flutter, but she didn't dare let it flutter too much. After all, Boss Mang had never even been moved by a woman like Sister Yin Jiao. Boss Mang was the kind of man who put his career first. A career-driven man in the apocalypse rarely had any real room left for personal romance. Wanting a man like that to hold her and whisper lifelong vows of love in this setting was as absurd as trying to compete for favor with Empress Ma. Xiao Fang. Xiao Fang. Xiao Fang snapped out of her daze and hurriedly looked up at Boss Mang. Seeing his slightly furrowed brows, she quickly and softly asked, "Boss Mang, what are your orders? Get me a bottle of water." "Yes, sir." Taking the water bottle, Chen Meng took a sip, then turned back to sit at the control console. He already had a preliminary decision in mind. After sending a private message to Air Dan, he pushed the control lever. The planet lifted off the ground, surging forward at a steady but not overly fast speed. The acceleration was immense. In barely a second, its speed reached 328 kilometers per hour. Yet the inside of the train remained incredibly stable. Not even the water in the bottle rippled. The higher the speed, the greater the energy consumption. When there was no rush, it was best to save whatever energy they could. The destination for this trip was the westernmost edge of Crisis Valley, the land of extreme cold. The Crisis Valley region bordered 4 other regions, including 2 blue zones and 2 green zones. He planned to enter a purple zone in 10 days, right when Sun City's renovations were completed. At that time, he would distribute the entry passes in the 3 blue zones first, then along the train tunnels. He'd do another round of distribution in the Sheh Plains and the Teeling Wasteland. Going higher up from the white zone of Teeling Wasteland, one could ultimately only enter Crisis Valley. There was no second path to choose. His initial user base was limited to just that. He couldn't expect it to naturally spread everywhere on its own. He had to make contact with people from more regions to accumulate the necessary number of users. About 3 hours later, Chen Meng once again saw the familiar intersection of the regions. 4 large characters floated on the region's boundary light screen, while 2 lines of text simultaneously appeared on the control monitor. The area ahead is a blue zone, Land of Extreme Cold. Maximum monster level allowed, level 12. Current train level, level 12. Danger coefficient, low. Crisis Valley didn't border any purple zones. To enter other purple zones from Crisis Valley, one had to pass through the 2 blue zones to the west and east. The Land of Extreme Cold, in turn, bordered 6 regions, 1 white zone, 1 green zone, 3 purple zones, and 1 yellow zone. The temperature here was incredibly low. The moment they entered the region, Chen Meng, sitting in the control room, could feel waves of freezing air seeping into the train. The surface of the planet was quickly covered in a thin layer of frost. The temperature display read -58 degrees Celsius. A bone-chilling cold. Splashing water and having it freeze instantly was just the most basic occurrence. If you were bored enough to lick the train's armor, you'd basically lose half your tongue. Even though it tasted quite sweet. So sweet it carried the rusty scent of warmth. Honestly, just thinking about it hurt. Chen Meng sat in the control room, watching the parameters constantly flashing on the screen. In weather conditions like this, every aspect of the train was visibly affected. Not to mention anything else, just mining alone was practically impossible. Mining for a day in this environment would definitely result in people freezing to death. That wasn't a joke, especially when their heating measures were still limited. There were almost no permanent resident trains in this region, and naturally, no or mines either. There were only certain special monsters adapted to the freezing environment. Most of the time, this place was used as a transit station. Only occasionally would a train stop by to hunt monsters. Monsters in this region had a chance to drop train accessories like snowmobiles or snowmakers when killed. Right then, a train whistle echoed from the distance. Toot toot toot. Soon after, the traveling frog appeared in sight, rushing over and slowly decelerating as it approached the planet. The door to the planet's first car opened, and the traveling frog smoothly drove inside. Not long after, Air Dan, his entire body radiating cold air, took the elevator from the first floor of the control room to the second, striding toward Chen Meng. Exhaling a puff of hot breath, he said, "Boss Meng, you were looking for me?" Honestly, coming back to the planet now felt just like coming home. It was so safe there was nothing to worry about. Yeah, Chen Meng nodded, swiveling his chair halfway around. Looking at Air Dan, he smiled and said, "I see you still haven't found any encounter maps. In that case, take a break for a while. For the next 10 days, take your men over to the residential cars and have some fun. 10 days from now, prepare to enter the purple zone. Besides, your train still isn't up to par. Take this time to upgrade it to level 12. The armor needs to be upgraded too. There's nothing urgent. Just take your men and go. Old Zhu will host you." Air Dan grinned from ear to ear, nodding vigorously. "Boss Meng, you really understand my brothers. They've been craving those places for a long time." With that, he turned and went downstairs to bring his men up. Before long, Air Dan led over a dozen of his lackeys up the elevator to the first floor of the control room, barking at them as they walked. "Hurry up and greet Boss Meng. What are you standing there like idiots for?" "Greetings, Boss Meng." The dozen lackeys bowed in unison, both excited and respectful. "Yeah, go downstairs and have fun." "Thank you, Boss Meng." The lackeys followed Air Dan, taking the elevator to Car 2, their eyes darting around in endless curiosity. Car 2 was 10 meters wide, 10 meters high, and 30 meters long. No matter how you looked at it, it didn't resemble a normal train car. It felt like standing inside a massive space station. Inside, numerous large-scale production lines were set up. Most were on standby, while a few were continuously churning out items. The space was vast and empty. Aside from them, there was no one else, giving it a slightly lonely vibe. 100 heavy machine guns were mounted on the ceiling, accompanied by dozens of mechanical eyes. The camera density was even thicker than at a Hadaleo hot pot restaurant. Boss Dan, a lackey walking in the back, spoke up, sounding a bit aggrieved. "Just now, why did you tell us to greet Boss Meng and ask why we were standing there like idiots?" "We weren't standing like idiots. We were just about to open our mouths the moment we came up, but you yelled at us before we even had the chance. You made it look like we were forced to greet him. What if Boss Meng thinks we don't know our manners?" "Huh." Air Dan tilted his head to look at him, his expression indescribable. "I think your head is a bit too thick. Before the apocalypse, when your house had guests, Didn't your mom tell you to hurry up and say hello and not just stand there like an idiot? Were you standing like an idiot then? Are you saying you'd only greet them if your mom didn't say that? If you can't figure it out, take your time and think about it. I swear. Whatever, just shut up and follow me. 3 minutes later, Air Dan led the lackeys to car 5, the car for female high-level talents. The car was divided by a corridor. On the left was a row of beds and a living space. Air Dan knew very well that there were currently only 2 of Boss Mang's women in this car. Looks like I need to make a suggestion to Boss Mang. Air Dan looked up at the car door about 30 meters away and muttered under his breath. Maybe we should install bicycles on the train. Otherwise, just walking to car 5 is tiring enough, and getting to car 11 is a really long trek. Normally, he wouldn't walk this slowly. It was mainly because it was just too rare of an experience. This was his first time walking from the front to the back of the planet. Everything looked new, and he was curious about it all. The first few cars basically had no one in them. When they reached car 7, Old Ju finally came to greet them, laughing heartily as he looked at the group. All right, let me take you all on a tour of the train. Boss Mang already said it. We're all family here. No need to be so formal. Even though you guys don't have Irish chips yet, you're still considered direct subordinates of the planet. We share in the glory and the disgrace. Come on, this way. The cars further back gradually became more crowded. Quite a few residents could be seen walking around inside. Old Ju introduced things as he walked ahead. Right now, there are fewer active residents. Most people are sleeping. They mined all through the night yesterday. Normally, this area is much livelier. But most of the time, the residents still live inside the spatial portals. This car is mainly a transit space. Cars 8 and 9 are both residential cars. There are 8 residential zones in total. Theoretically, in the future, they can hold a maximum of 10,000 people while still guaranteeing living conditions. In an emergency, holding over 100,000 people wouldn't be a problem either. Car 10 is the entertainment district and the film base. That movie you watched last time was shot by a director right here on the train. You could call it the first original film of the post-apocalyptic era. Up ahead, car 11 is the Goblin Car. The Red Pavilion and the resident stores are all there. Air Dan stood in car 10, looking at the spatial portals on both sides, and said somewhat hesitantly, "This layout doesn't seem very logical. The residential cars are 8 and 9, so why are the resident stores placed in car 11? Ah, that's a historical leftover," Old Ju explained with a smile. The Goblin Car has a much lower population density, so there's more room to move around. If we put the Red Pavilion and the resident stores in cars 8 and 9, it would be way too crowded with people constantly coming and going. Understood. But you could have just swapped cars 10 and 11. Wouldn't that be the best of both worlds? Theoretically, yes. But Boss Mang said he's already used to it, so we're not changing it for now. Anyway, it's just a few extra steps. It doesn't really matter. We're at car 11. Right ahead is the Red Pavilion. Those little starlets are waiting for you guys inside. You can go in and have fun. Ah, Air Dan looked a bit embarrassed, lowering his voice. Actually, I kind of wanted to check out the film base and the entertainment district too. We don't necessarily have to go straight to the Red Pavilion. Doing that makes us look like a bunch of degenerate playboys. Then let's cancel it. Well, since we're already here, we might as well go in and take a look first. Have fun, guys. Oh, right. Air Dan suddenly remembered something. He turned back to look at Old Ju, asking in confusion, when we passed by car 3. I saw a massive spiked mace inside. It practically took up the whole car. What is that thing? It's a long story. Wait until you guys are done playing, and I'll tell you all about it when you come out. The planet continued tearing across the land of extreme cold. Meanwhile, Biaozi and the guards were all inside the virtual combat training space. After leaving Neon City, they had brought back quite a few good items. Most were kept to stock the stores in Neon City, but a few rare items were brought along. Good items, naturally, had to be prioritized for the planet's use. Even if they wanted to sell them, not many trains could afford the price. For example, Extreme Challenge, Special Item, Rare Edition Map Chip, Normal Edition. Completing normal difficulty increases overall constitution by 0.2. Extreme difficulty increases it by 0.5. The Rare Edition had higher rewards. Completing normal difficulty increased it by 0.5, and Extreme by 1.0. Naturally, the difficulty scaled up as well. At the time, the store had two of these. Boss Mang took one, and the other was used as a high-end display item. There are some things you don't necessarily have to sell, but you absolutely must display them. Besides that, there was another item, Zombie Nation, special item, Ultimate Edition map chip. The selling price was a staggering 20 million points, 40 times that of the rare edition. It was the only one of its kind on the entire planet. Completing normal difficulty increased overall constitution by 2.0. Extreme increased it by 4.0. Each could be claimed a maximum of 3 times. In other words, if you fully cleared this ultimate map, you could directly gain 18 points of overall constitution, equivalent to Zhang Damiai's base stats. Of course, the difficulty was also unreasonably high. Right now, inside the virtual combat training space, Biaozi had died who knows how many times. He stood with a blank stare in the pure white space, receiving mental therapy. Dying so many times had caused him to start hallucinating, unable to clearly distinguish between reality and the virtual space. He was challenging the Ultimate Edition map of Zombie Nation. At first glance, this map looked very simple. The starting point was in the middle of a plaza. All the zombies were level 1, an extremely low level, but there were 5,000 of them. As long as you wiped out all 5,000 zombies, you successfully cleared the stage. It sounded easy, but once you tried it, you'd realize it wasn't easy at all. Simple and brutal. But this fundamentally wasn't a mission a human could complete. Biaozi was a bit dazed, looking down at his right hand. The phantom pain was still incredibly vivid, so intense it made him shudder. His pain receptors were on the verge of breaking down. If he didn't receive mental therapy in time, he'd be truly crippled later on. Most importantly, he had no weapons in his hands other than a meat cleaver. What was this equivalent to? It was equivalent to being in the teeming wasteland, the train surrounded by a zombie tide, and him jumping down alone with a cleaver, wearing only a cloth shirt, to slaughter the entire horde clean. It was utterly absurd. His highest record was killing 37 zombies. After that, he was swarmed by the tidal wave of zombies. There was simply no room to swing his cleaver, and he was ultimately gnawed to death. Even Zhang Yi and Zhang Er tried a few times and only managed to kill a little over 40. No matter how great your strength was, it was useless. A zombie tide didn't fear death. Once they swarmed you, they would suffocate everything. Aside from dying, there was no other way out. There were no traps to exploit, no terrain advantage. It was a completely open plaza with no cover and no blind spots. Forget 5,000 zombies. Even if 5,000 chickens fearlessly charged at him all at once, he wouldn't be able to fight them off. Those 5,000 chickens would be enough to peck him to death. This won't work. After a long while, Biaozi took a deep breath and temporarily gave up on this map. It couldn't be cleared in the short term. This wasn't the kind of stage you could beat just by risking your life. He couldn't be too much of a perfectionist. For now, he should try the rare edition map of Extreme Challenge. The screen transitioned. Biaozi appeared at the edge of a high-rise rooftop. The illusory scenery around him gradually materialized, and a light screen appeared in front of him. This map has a total of 9 stages. Reach the finish line before the countdown ends to successfully clear the stage. Biaozi looked up at the giant string of numbers suspended in the sky. A total of half an hour on the countdown. At first glance, this looked like a pure obstacle course. No monsters, just get past it. This map didn't seem to have any difficulty at all. The first stage was jumping from the rooftop he was standing on to the rooftop of the building opposite him, a distance of 2 meters. The opposite building was about 3 meters lower. With his current constitution, let alone now, even before the apocalypse, he could have easily made that jump. Phew. Biaozi took a deep breath, stepping back a few paces to get a running start. But the moment he took a step back, a violent pain instantly swept through his body. Fresh blood spurted from his mouth, his body freezing in place. He looked down, only to see countless steel spikes shooting up from the ground, piercing straight through his entire body. There are traps. That was his last thought before he died. It was fine. It was only normal difficulty anyway. He never lacked the courage to start over. Appearing at the edge of the rooftop once again, this time he didn't step straight back for a running start. Instead, he moved a bit to the left before getting ready. The moment he stepped to the left, the steel spikes shot up again. Do over. Step to the right. Spike still shot up. Do over. This time, he took a huge leap sideways. Surely there wouldn't be a trap there, right? Spike shot up again. Do over. What if I don't take a running start? What if I just jump from a standstill? Biaozi took a deep breath, stood with his feet right at the edge of the rooftop, and launched himself forward. The moment he was airborne, a high-speed spinning saw blade suddenly shot out from between the two buildings, slicing him in half. Still a trap. Do over. This time, he lay flat against the edge of the rooftop and slowly extended his leg outward. The instant he heard the sonic boom, he immediately pulled his leg back, baiting the saw blade trap into appearing, before climbing back up to the edge of the roof. Deep breath. Aim at the target. Standing broad jump. This time, there were no mid-air traps. But just as he was about to land, he saw that at his landing spot on the opposite rooftop, steel spikes had shot up out of nowhere. Mid-air, Biaozi expressionlessly closed his eyes, waiting for the pain to strike again. After dying over 30 times in a row, Biaozi finally reached the second stage. His eyes bloodshot, he reached out and pressed the prominent red button on the pillar. Next to it was a sign, Stage 2. Immediately after came a rapid beep, beep, beep. An explosion roared, and flames engulfed the entire rooftop. Again. This time, he ignored the red button and prepared to charge straight for the third stage. But after taking just 2 steps, he saw another sign. It read, "Look up at the sky." Out of reflex, Biaozi looked up. At that exact moment, the giant countdown clock in the sky plummeted straight down, crushing him to death on the spot. His last thought before dying was, "Why the hell is this damn countdown clock? A physical object?" Chen Meng sat in the control room, grinning from ear to ear as he watched Biaozi's playthrough on the screen, a clear look of anticipation in his eyes. He wasn't hoping for Biaozi to clear the stage, but rather hoping he'd unlock a few more novel ways to die. Up to now, Biaozi had died over 30 times, and every single time was in a different spot. This map was very straightforward. There were no monsters. It was just an obstacle course that required using your life for trial and error. Anyone could clear it, as long as they died enough times. Once the strategy was summarized and spread, latecomers might even be able to clear it in a single life. Thinking of this, the corners of Chun Meng's mouth twitched up. Some things were just born to torture people. Who on earth designed this map, anyway? Chun Meng sat in his chair, watching the scene unfold with deep emotion. At this moment, the planet was in auto-patrol mode. The enemy detection radar was running nonstop, rapidly scanning the entire surrounding area. For this trip to the Blue Zone, the land of extreme cold, he only had 2 goals. The first goal was to take in the scenery and characteristics of different regions and conveniently get a better understanding of the situation here. The second goal was to hunt a level 11 or level 12 extreme cold monster to obtain 2 accessories, the snowmobile and the snowmaker. The snowmobile was a special type of wheel with a mechanism similar to treads, allowing the train to move stably over thick snow. It was just that in certain special situations, this type would be a bit faster, like when going downhill, and it also saved more energy. But this accessory was practically useless to Chen Meng. He didn't have to worry about the train getting stuck in the snow at all, because he could just use magnetic levitation technology to hover without touching the ground. The weather control console was also enough to create heavy snow. The snowmaker was considered redundant. Even so, since he was already here, and these 2 accessories had a high probability of only dropping in the land of extreme cold, he might as well get them if he had the chance. Just like the drill from before, which could practically only be obtained in the Mount Galuan region. If he missed it there, he basically wouldn't have another chance once he moved on to other regions. It was just that after being in the land of extreme cold for dozens of minutes, Chun Meng still hadn't encountered a truly high-level monster. It was all level 8s and 9s, with the highest being only level 10. He still wanted to find a level 12. Not just for the accessories, but for his own personal goal. He wanted to test just how powerful the train's special skill, Death Vortex, would be at full speed, especially when the speed reached 5,000 kilometers per hour. Right at that moment, the enemy detection radar suddenly let out a rapid series of beeps. On the display screen, a red dot representing a level 12 extreme cold monster appeared. It was 100,000 meters away, moving rapidly across the snow. Found you. Chen Meng's eyes lit up, and he immediately sat up straight. He no longer had the mind to care about what new way Biaozi had died. He shoved the control lever forward, and an immense sense of acceleration hit in an instant. In just 1.4 seconds, the planet accelerated to 5,000 kilometers per hour, equivalent to 1,390 meters per second. A minute later, the train, moving at a terrifying speed, rapidly closed in on the red dot on the radar screen. A stream of information continuously popped up. Distance, 5,000 meters. Distance, 3,000 meters. Distance, 1,000 meters. When the distance was only a few hundred meters, Chen Meng didn't decelerate at all. He slammed his fist directly onto the red button on the special skill console. The entire train suddenly launched into the air. The train blade and the drill extended simultaneously, beginning to spin at high speed. Immediately after, the planet spun violently, transforming into a tornado of steel. At a speed almost impossible for the naked eye to track, it smashed straight into the snow monster that was over 20 meters tall. Boom. The ear-piercing sound of the collision, mixed with a sonic boom, echoed across the snowy wasteland. The planet rapidly decelerated, then slowly hovered back down over the snow. Behind it was a feast of flesh and blood. The giant snow monster barely had time to react before its entire body was instantly shredded into countless pieces, dying on the spot. An instant kill on a level 12 extreme cold monster. It's just that. Ugh. Chen Meng looked at the lines of text continuously scrolling across the console screen, his eyebrows twitching slightly. Warning. Warning. Train blade perfection decreased by 11%. Drill perfection decreased by 97%. Loudspeaker perfection decreased to 0%. Strong magnet perfection decreased to 0%. Headlight perfection decreased to 0%. Mechanical tentacle perfection severely decreased. How should he put it? This was the first time Chen Meng had seen the drill accessory lose perfection. This accessory had almost no complex mechanisms. Its super attribute effects upon upgrading were purely stat boosts, getting harder and harder, spinning faster and faster. The power of that move just now was immense. Especially when the train hit 5,000 kilometers per hour, carbon-based life forms had practically zero chance of defending against it. Forget level 12 monsters. Even level 13 or 14 ones. He felt he could kill them in an instant. It's just that the price to pay was a bit painful. Under the violent collision, almost all the external accessories were completely destroyed. Their perfection dropped straight to 0%. They couldn't even be repaired. They could only be rebuilt from scratch. The mechanical nanospider system immediately activated. Pitch-black nanospiders quickly crawled out of the control room, beginning to repair the train blade and the drill. As for the loudspeaker, strong magnet, mechanical tentacles, and headlights, they all had to be rebuilt from scratch. Fortunately, aside from the strong magnet, the rest of the accessories were only white grade, so the cost wasn't high. It just so happened that the headlights had never been upgraded before. This time, he might as well conveniently upgrade them straight to level 100. Crafting a white-grade accessory and upgrading it from level 1 to level 100 required about 508,000 units of iron ore. After consuming a total of 2.2 million units of iron ore, all the basic accessories were rebuilt and upgraded to level 100. The headlights also unlocked new super attribute effects. Headlight level 20 super attribute effect. Energy consumption reduced by half. Headlight level 50 super attribute effect. Energy consumption further reduced by half. Looks like it wasn't a loss after all. Headlight level 100 super attribute effect. Straight laser beam. Maximum illumination range extended to 10,000 meters. Extremely low brightness attenuation. Not bad. Chen Meng looked at the two accessories he just obtained, a green-grade snowmobile and a gold-grade snowmaker, placed them in the drawer, and curled his lip. At least he got the blueprints for these two things. It's just that the price was a bit painful, directly burning through 2.2 million units of iron ore. Thinking back on it, it felt like there was absolutely no need to use Death Vortex. Just extending the drill and ramming straight into it at super speed would have been enough. That way, the train blade's perfection wouldn't have dropped, and he would have saved quite a bit of iron ore. The power wouldn't have been much different either. Once you reached extreme speeds, The extra power added by the special skill didn't mean much anymore. Just like with other things, only impotent men would go researching unorthodox tricks like 7 shallow, 7 deep. Truly strong men just go big and finish it fast. Thinking of this, Chen Meng shook his head slightly. But the headlight situation reminded him of something. There were some basic accessories on the train that he usually ignored and had never upgraded to level 100. Maybe he should take this chance to see exactly what their level 100 super attribute effects were. For example, the refrigerator. It might sound a bit harsh, but if the planet truly became the strongest train on this planet in the future, when it came time to hand out rewards for merits, this refrigerator would definitely deserve a spot up there. Without the refrigerator, the train's development speed would have been slowed down significantly. Not to mention using it for living space or preserving the strategic resources they had plundered. Just the S-rank potential mechanical train mission alone. Without the refrigerator, that mission would have been fundamentally impossible to complete. After consuming 2,500 units of iron ore, the refrigerator in the control room was instantly upgraded to level 100. Its appearance also changed slightly. It was still a double-door fridge, but whether it was an illusion or the material had actually changed, it clearly looked much more premium. One glance and you could tell, it was very expensive. Refrigerator level 20 super attribute effect. Energy consumption reduced by half. Refrigerator level 50 super attribute effect. Minimum temperature can be lowered to minus 200 degrees Celsius. Refrigerator level 100 super attribute effect. Within the range of the enemy detection radar, the refrigerator possesses defensive strength equivalent to the train's armor. Energy attacks are nullified. Chen Meng silently stared at these 3 effects. Spending over 500,000 units of iron ore in exchange for 3 super attribute effects was a profit no matter how you looked at it. It's just that he really hadn't figured out what to use them for yet. A temperature of minus 200 degrees Celsius was already approaching absolute zero. In the entire universe, environments reaching absolute zero were incredibly rare. No matter how cold the surface temperatures of many planets were, they only hovered around minus 200 degrees Celsius. Rumor had it that at absolute zero, even light could be frozen. Xiao AI would probably be very interested in using this effect for experiments. As for that level 100 super attribute effect, at first glance, it was truly very powerful. With the train's current level at 14, as long as you were within the radar's range, hiding inside the fridge basically made you invincible. But the problem was, in what situation would you use it? Was he supposed to have the guards carry the fridge off the train and hide inside it whenever they encountered danger? Or maybe tell Xiao AI to take the wheels off an off-road motorcycle, attach them to the 4 sides of the fridge, and directly build a ground tank? Thinking of that scene, Chen Meng couldn't help but twitch the corners of his mouth. The image was a bit abstract, but it didn't seem entirely impossible. Later on, if the train's armor was upgraded to level 30-something, having a bunch of refrigerator tanks with level 30 armor. Just thinking about it felt a bit absurd, but also incredibly overpowered. It's just that the price wouldn't be cheap. The refrigerator accessory had to be upgraded separately. Whatever, I'll deal with it later. Chen Meng withdrew his gaze, stopping his train of thought. He turned to look at the screen, ready to see what other ways Biaozi could manage to die. Biaozi's patience really wasn't bad. He still hadn't given up and was still trying to clear the stage. He had already reached the 3rd stage, and his speed was quite fast. At the same time, the planet had begun to turn around and head back. The mission this time was considered complete. The next goal was to return to Crisis Valley. In the land of extreme cold, due to the extremely low temperatures, the energy stone consumption rate was much faster than normal. It wasn't suitable for a long stay. Very quickly, the planet returned to Crisis Valley, slowly touching down on the ground. Outside the window, Zhang Yi was piloting the Pope mecha in the open clearing, familiarizing himself with its controls. Pope, burst-type melee mecha. All firepower configurations removed. Defense and speed pushed to the absolute limit. External armor and built-in sledgehammer are both level 12. Maximum speed reaches 640 kilometers per hour. A single level 4 energy stone can sustain full power combat for 5 hours. Requires pilot's overall constitution to be above 23.0. Reaching 23.5 can unleash its full power. No mental strength requirement. Crafting cost, 1.08 million units of crimson core rock. An incredibly expensive mecha. The crafting cost alone required over 1 million units of crimson core rock. Even after mining the level 3 crimson core rock mine they found in the Huayuan Iron Ridge Dry, they only got about 180,000 units. It would take 6 or 7 level 3 mines like that just to build one Pontiff mech. But it truly lives up to being a purple-grade mech. Its base stats are absolutely terrifying. Inside, the most valuable part is that level 12 outer armor. In the entire Crisis Valley, no train possesses level 12 defense, except for the Stellar How. In other words, whoever pilots this Pontiff mech can completely go head-to-head against a level 10 train all by themselves. Thinking of this, Chenmeng nodded slightly. Strictly speaking, if this kind of strategic asset fell into enemy hands, it would definitely mean prison time, followed by a firing squad. A level 11 train still wouldn't be safe enough. After all, even though a level 11 train doesn't have level 12 armor, it likely possesses level 13 weapons, and its top speed is extremely fast. Standing 10 meters tall, it's slightly larger than the Thunder mech. Chenmeng just looked expressionlessly out the window at the mech, which was nearly as tall as the Stellar How. Right now, that mech was swinging a massive spiked club. The club was so huge it was almost the size of the mech itself. It looked a bit like a child swinging a hoe, slightly disproportionate. But it swung with terrifying momentum and immense power. It was so exaggerated and flashy that its effectiveness was practically doubled. That giant spiked club was the weapon of the monster from the tunnel cave they had confiscated earlier. For some unknown reason, after that giant monster died, its weapon didn't shatter but was preserved almost perfectly. This is a level 15 weapon, much stronger than the mech's built-in arsenal. Back then, it almost smashed his car number 5, which had level 13 armor, to pieces. Its power was unimaginable. It's just that this weapon is too heavy, so naturally, it was given to Zhang Yi to use. The only pity is that the forced parry skill belonged to the monster itself, not the weapon. Otherwise, it would have been a massive jackpot. If it came with a built-in forced parry, this weapon wouldn't just have level 15 attack power. Its defensive strength would be equally terrifying. Back then, Chenmeng bombarded it with the level 17 Doomsday autocannon for a long time, yet the weapon didn't show a single scratch or sign of damage. You could call it a divine artifact. It's excellent, very pleasing to the eye. The next 10 days passed peacefully like this, with no major incidents. Chenmeng also took a stroll around another blue zone. He didn't find any level 4 mines, mostly just level 3s. He mined whatever he saw, leaving it up to fate. He treated it as a short vacation. During that time, he set aside a day to screen a new movie directed by Zhang Yiren for all the residents. The popularity of the female lead in the new movie exploded. It was hard to tell if it was because of the script or her acting. Quite a few of the flesh-peddling girls on the train took almost all their savings and gifted them to Zhang Yiren, just hoping to be the female lead in his next movie. If not, then at least a supporting role with plenty of screen time, the kind that could really show off their beauty and sex appeal. This trend left old Zhu a bit flustered. Unsure if he should intervene, he went to report it to Chenmeng. At the time, Chenmeng thought about it for a moment and decided not to interfere, letting things develop naturally. This is the residents' business. A train will eventually form its own ecosystem. The emergence of unexpected things is, from a certain perspective, actually a good thing. It's a sign of vitality, even if it sounds a bit weird. Over these 10 days, the renovation work in Neon City was also completed. Chenmeng piloted the Stellar How and distributed a batch of free Neon City admission tickets across several blue and white zones. Consider it securing their first batch of customers. Right now, Chenmeng was standing in front of the floor-to-ceiling window of a high-rise building in the Sun City Entertainment District of Neon City. Beside him were Old Zhu and Chi Ziki. Chi Ziki pointed into the distance and began her introduction. Boss Meng, according to your plan, nearly 60% of the shops that are still in business have all relocated around Sun City. All the shops in this area are currently open for business. The remaining shops couldn't be dismantled or moved due to fixed equipment or other reasons. The business systems of all the shops have been directly connected to the core system you left behind, Boss Meng. All final revenue will be funneled to you. It's just that I'm still considering one thing. Our actions are equivalent to hijacking the ownership of all these shops. If the original owners of these shops come looking for us later, according to standard procedure, it would be prison, then execution. If we skip the procedure, it's straight to execution. Yeah, Shin Meng nodded, looking down at the more than 30 train captains gathered below, frowning slightly. Right now, they were standing inside a shop, curiously looking outside through the glass. There were quite a few people walking on the streets, all of them robots. He had just dressed these robots in proper clothes to hide their mechanical features, making them pretend to be pedestrians walking the streets to create an atmosphere. Otherwise, this place would look too desolate, not like a commercial center at all. That shop was the starting point. He said it so that they could only leave the starting point on Sundays. The rest of the time, they could only operate in this area. Right now, the number of people is still too small. Moreover, he didn't use the name of the Stellar How, but rather the name of an encounter map. The free admission ticket to Neon City could freely edit the information on the control panel. The Stellar How's reputation was practically zero and needed to be built from scratch, as many people hadn't even heard the name before. But the reputation of an encounter map is different. Its credibility is practically maxed out. This is. Inside the starting point shop, a middle-aged man stood on his tiptoes, looking at the scene outside the glass window. He was a bit excited. Is this the legendary encounter map? It really is something else. An encounter map. A tall woman next to him frowned slightly, glancing at him. What level is your train? Level 2. The tall woman looked away, speechless, and muttered under her breath. What kind of encounter map lets even a level 2 train in? Feels cheap. Hey lady, you're sounding a bit arrogant there. What level is your train? Level 11. Got a problem with that? Never mind, it's nothing. The middle-aged man looked a bit embarrassed and shrank his neck. Senior, the light screen of this map clearly states that trains aren't allowed to attack each other. You can't just do whatever you want here. What are you afraid of? No matter how high her train's level is, we're all unarmed here. What's there to be scared of? A nosy person nearby immediately chimed in. You guys don't get it. This is about respect. The middle-aged man shook his head. His voice carried a hint of emotion. After all, it was hard enough for me to upgrade my train to level 2. I really can't imagine how difficult it must be to reach level 11. It's not that hard. I'm level 12. Whoa, we have a big shot here too. The atmosphere in the shop instantly became much livelier. Speaking of which, where did you guys get your Neon City admission tickets? I picked mine up. Me too. You all just found them? Not me. I killed a zombie and found this thing in its mouth. That still counts as picking it up. If it was a drop, it wouldn't have appeared in such a weird way. Inside the starting point shop, everyone started whispering and discussing. A few captains tried pushing the door to go outside, but quickly realized it wouldn't budge at all. Next to the door, a screen displayed a few cold lines of text. Monday every week is opening time, operating all day. On other days, visitors please halt. The middle-aged man from earlier looked around the room and finally spotted a device in the corner clearly labeled self-service machine. He walked over to take a look and found that each captain could claim up to 20 free Sun City admission tickets, but only once a week. Next to it was another screen displaying content that made people's hearts race. Visitor referral rewards. 1. Please enter your train's name. Invite a new visitor who has never been to Sun City. When the invited party enters Sun City and reports your train's name, both of you will receive 500 stellar credits. 2. When the number of invited visitors reaches 10, 50, or 100, there will be special rewards. 3. Each visitor can only be invited once. The middle-aged man stared intently at these words, his eyes instantly lighting up. He quickly claimed all 20 tickets and stuffed them into his pockets. Isn't this just a referral reward? And an incredibly easy one at that. Just make a trip to a gathering zone, and in a few minutes, you can pull in a whole batch. It's too easy. Stellar credits must be the currency in this encounter map. Nearby, he also saw another exchange machine. It clearly stated, 1 unit of iron ore exchanges for 1 stellar credit. 1 unit of copper ore exchanges for 1 stellar credit. Currently, only these 2 types of resources are supported. Stellar credits can be used for spending in Sun City. Additionally, stellar credits can be exchanged back for iron ore and copper or at the same rate. The man counted on his fingers, muttering calculations. In other words, pulling in one person earns 500 units of iron ore. Pulling in 20 people is 10,000 units of iron ore again. That's equivalent to mining a level 1 iron ore mine dry. What a massive profit. How can there be such a good deal? Just then, a commotion broke out among the crowd. The tall woman from earlier pressed her face against the glass, pointing excitedly at a shop across the street. There's a mechanical train accessories shop over there. Look at that sign. On Monday, there's a discount on ink jadeite. It only costs 1 million stellar credits. 1 million stellar credits means 1 million units of iron ore again. That's an absolute steal. It really is a steal, damn it. The middle-aged man squeezed through, looking bewildered. What exactly is ink jadeite? Buying one costs 1 million units of iron ore again. How is that a steal? It's a huge steal. The tall woman replied seriously, the lowest price I've ever bought it for was 700,000 units of iron ore, and the highest was 1.8 million. This stuff is incredibly rare, and its price is extremely unstable. When you need it urgently, the price can skyrocket. But here, it has a fixed price. When you're in a pinch and can't buy it out there, you can just come here and get it. Besides, you probably don't even dare to use heavy machine guns yet, right? Copper ore is too expensive. But if you use ink jadeite to upgrade the Doomsday autocannon to level 10, the ammo consumption drops drastically, even lower than a heavy machine gun. Heavy machine guns? I haven't even crafted one yet. Right now, when I see zombies, I just run. Keep running then. I was the same when I first started. Run enough, and you'll eventually level up. There's a flesh train accessories shop over there too. Finally, someone is giving us flesh trains some respect. But stellar credits can only be exchanged with iron ore, and flesh trains can't mine iron ore again. So how are we supposed to earn stellar credits? I'm not sure about that. Looks like they still aren't truly favoring flesh trains. But you flesh trains hunt bosses all the time. Don't you have a ton of ink jadeite? There's a purchasing shop over there. Sell your ink jadeite, exchange it for stellar credits, and then come back to buy stuff at the flesh train accessories shop. Damn, you're right. Thanks for reminding me. I still have a whole pile of mechanical train accessory blueprints I haven't sold yet. I'll dump them all into that purchasing shop later. Coming here, they finally realized that this so-called encounter map was actually teaching people step-by-step how to make money. Chen Meng stood by the floor-to-ceiling window of the high-rise in Sun City, looking down with a complex expression. The conversation at the starting point played through the audio system beside him, every word falling clearly into his ears. In the end, he had made the choice to let stellar credits and iron ore exchange at a 1-to-1 ratio. This choice would definitely create pressure in the early stages, but he knew very well that later on, upgrading accessories would consume a terrifying amount of iron ore. To survive in the apocalypse, one had to hoard a massive amount of iron ore, and because of that, from the very beginning, his goal was crystal clear. He had to develop Sun City until it was massive, so massive that no one could shake it. As long as there were no accidents, no malicious actors inciting a crisis of confidence that caused everyone to withdraw their iron ore at once, the capital chain basically wouldn't break. By operating slowly and steadily, the city would naturally grow stronger. After all, in this apocalypse, his Sun City was one of a kind. Sometimes, even Chen Meng felt like he was walking a tightrope, but once he took the step, there was no turning back. It was currently 11 p.m. on Sunday. There was still 1 hour until Monday. Clearly, these captains had no intention of leaving. They were preparing to wait for the opening time. However, there were also quite a few who had entered and exited Sun City multiple times. Boss Meng, Xiao AI stood beside him, explaining helplessly. Those captains constantly going in and out are all level 1 or level 2 trains. They either haven't crafted a train AI yet, or their AI's level is too low. They absolutely don't dare to leave their trains for too long, afraid the train will be surrounded by a zombie tide, or that a riot will break out inside. Yeah, Chen Meng nodded. This was a practical problem, but he couldn't solve it for them. He could only wait for them to upgrade their own trains. Not long after, the clock struck midnight. The click of the door unlocking echoed, and the captains at the starting point surged out in unison. Meanwhile, Xiao AI quietly recorded the bugs and loopholes in the operational rules within this world. Every beginning is rough. No one can create a perfect plan right from the start. Everything is adjusted on the fly, and Sun City was no exception. Tonight was the first official trial run, and honestly, even Chen Mang felt a bit nervous watching the whole process. Is this really not created by the Stellar How? A young man frowned, his eyes scanning the city. As a level 8 mechanical train from the zombie puddle, if there was anything that left the deepest impression on him recently, it was definitely the Stellar How. And since the currency here was called stellar credits, his first reaction was naturally to think of Chen Mang. However, when he stepped out of the starting point and looked at the bustling streets and the brightly lit city, he began to doubt himself. Maybe he was overthinking it. After all, a city of this scale couldn't possibly be created by a single train. He looked down at the free Sun City admission ticket in his hand. Special item. Can enter the Sun City encounter map at any time. Can bring up to 10 train members. Full information displayed on the control panel. If the Stellar How could actually craft special items, that would be way too absurd. Thinking of this, he shook his head, stopped dwelling on it, and followed the crowd into the mechanical train accessories shop. Just seeing the densely packed goods displayed on the wall made him freeze. The confusion in his eyes flashed for a moment before instantly turning into certainty. It really is the Stellar How. It's you, Chen Mang. He was incredibly familiar with many of the items here, like the spatial bag and the level 10 refrigerator. The Stellar How used to sell these things in the zombie puddle, and he himself had bought quite a few. Soon, he saw the information displayed under his item list. Level 10 refrigerator, white grade accessory. Has absolute preservation effect and a pocket dimension effect. The internal space is 100 square meters. Selling price, 100,000 stellar credits. Consigned by train number 20. Consigned? He pondered for a moment. If it's on consignment, that makes more sense. Other than the Stellar How, who else could bring out these things? At the same time, the middle-aged man, the level 2 captain from earlier, hadn't brought any crew members. He walked into Sun City alone and stood inside the mechanical train accessory shop, looking around. His eyes were filled with helplessness. It was all good stuff, but the prices were too high, far beyond what he could afford. However, he quickly noticed that quite a few captains had left the shop and disappeared from the city, clearly heading back to fetch iron ore. Not long after, 7 or 8 captains reappeared at the starting point. This time, the crew members behind them carried storage chests and threw them straight into the transfer chute on the wall. Very quickly, the empty chests were sent back out. When the captains placed their wristwatches on the device next to it, the numbers started jumping wildly, finally stopping at 1.87 million. A tall woman, her eyes full of excitement, waved her hand and led the 7 or 8 burly men behind her, striding toward the mechanical train accessories shop. Let's go? Time to spend some money. Honestly, watching this scene, even Chen Mang standing high above couldn't help but let out a soft breath. The city had begun to run on its own. Just then, a beggar on the street suddenly blocked the woman's path, his voice carrying an unpredictable tone. Miss, this old man hasn't eaten in a long time. Would you be willing to spare some stellar credits so I can get a meal? Any amount will do. Get lost. The woman initially intended to curse at him in annoyance, but then she froze and pulled the beggar back. She hesitated for a moment, a strange look on her face, then asked, Is 1,000 stellar credits enough for you to get a meal? Enough, more than enough. All right, so how do I give it to you? Just tap your wristwatch against mine, enter the amount, and confirm. The whole process was very simple and completed quickly. Thank you, kind lady. The beggar in tattered clothes leaned on his cane and hobbled down the street, continuing forward. Wait, the woman called out hastily, a hint of anxiety in her voice. Hold, sir, and then what? What do you mean, and then what? I have to go eat. I'm starving to death. The woman's expression instantly changed. Just as she was about to strike, she caught sight of the armed patrol robots nearby, along with the light rules displayed upon entering the encounter map. She gritted her teeth and forced her anger down. She actually thought she had triggered some hidden quest. Who would have thought it was just a scam? Honestly, at that moment, it was really infuriating. On the upper floor of the building, Chen Mang watched the scene below, the corners of his lips curling up slightly. That beggar was a little Easter egg he had designed himself. If someone actually gave him alms, there really was a chance to get good items. It's just that the probability was very low. As for the armed patrol robots, they were the black hole armed robots he had brought down from the Stellar How. Actually, That wristwatch wasn't just for storing stellar credits. It also contained a small energy device. When attacked, it would automatically deploy an energy shield, naturally, to defend against other captains, not his armed robots. Even so, placing the robots here was more intuitive, enough to extinguish any unsavory intentions. Looks like it's not a bad start. Chen Mang took the tablet Xiao AI handed him. The screen displayed that a total of 3.89 million stellar credits had been issued, meaning they had taken in 3.89 million units of iron ore. With just over 30 captains and not having been operational for long, achieving this result was already very promising. Take it slow. A daily goal of 100 million. Just thinking about it brings pressure, but it's also quite thrilling. From the looks of it now, the results are very good, and it's quite friendly to low-level trains. Xiao AI continued her report. Even if they can't afford the goods, they can earn stellar credits by pulling in new customers and then exchange them for iron ore. For them, it's an additional source of income. For us, it brings in a lot of new users. Yeah, Chen Mang nodded, handing the tablet back. After observing for a while longer, he finally said, "Let's go. Once we finish upgrading Air Dance Train, we'll prepare to enter the purple zone." "Yes, sir." There was nothing else worth observing for the time being. Chen Mang returned to the Stellar House control cabin, grabbed the walkie-talkie, and called Old Zhu. "Find someone obedient and quick on their feet. I need them to stay in Sun City long-term." Understood. Communication between Sun City and the Stellar House wasn't timely enough. Chen Mang needed a body for Xiao AI to stay behind and monitor things. But Xiao AI wasn't a train member, so squeezing an admission ticket was useless for her. Therefore, he needed a train member to carry a refrigerator and stay by Xiao AI's side. In case of an emergency, they could immediately stuff Xiao AI into the refrigerator, withdraw from Sun City, and report back to him. All things considered, this was a rather special position. Chen Mang seriously considered what to name this position. Finally, he decided, let's just call it Xiao AI's breeder. It sounds a bit weird, but it fits perfectly. He left this matter for Old Zhu to handle, while he himself prepared to upgrade the train and enter the purple zone. Looking at the resource panel before him, 35.4 million units of iron ore, 2.57 million units of wood, 17.64 million units of copper ore, 4.48 million units of crimson core rock, 10.29 million units of titanium crystal ore. Recrafting basic accessories had consumed some iron ore, and the solar panels had absorbed a bit more, so it basically balanced out. Plus the ore brought back from the Goblin Tomb and the amount mined over the past 10 days. He had also crafted a few more level 4 energy stones for daily living and to power the 2 Ponif mechs. He temporarily didn't withdraw the iron or just collect it in Sun City, leaving it as an operational fund. From a certain perspective, starting from this moment, Sun City had officially entered a corporate state. Even though the city's account had an additional 3.79 million units of iron ore, that was a corporate account, not pure profit. The Stellar House account was his personal account. Just thinking about all this accounting gave him a headache. But fortunately, he had a chief accountant on his train who used to make millions a year before the apocalypse. Not long after, Uncle Lee walked into the control cabin looking anxious. "Boss Mang, the zombie monster cage has made significant progress. It's just that." "No rush." Chen Mang waved his hand, cutting him off with a calm voice. "Right now, you have a more important job. It's called Xiao AI's breeder. The specific job description includes accompanying Xiao AI and relaying information immediately. At the same time, you'll manage all the accounting for Sun City. If any discrepancies appear in the accounts, or if the iron or reserves hit the warning line, you must notify me in time. For example, if Sun City currently has 300 million units of iron ore, under the condition that it doesn't affect normal operations, what is the maximum amount I can withdraw at once? All these accounts will be your responsibility from now on. How about it? Right up your alley, isn't it?" Uncle Lee froze for a moment, then reflexively replied, "Right up my alley, Boss Mang. Nothing could be more up my alley than this." "Then what about my zombie monster cage? The startup phase of Sun City isn't too busy yet. You'll have to work a bit harder and handle both sides," Chen Mang continued. "What I promised before hasn't changed. If the zombie monster cage is successfully crafted, you will still enjoy the treatment of a level 1 high-tier talent. Later, When things get busier, haven't you been training an apprentice? Hand the zombie monster cage and the cultivation cabin over to your apprentice to manage. Go over the specific details with Xiao. AI. In cultivation cabin number 15, the young man who always followed Uncle Lee saw him return looking like his soul had left his body and hurriedly ran over. Uncle Lee, what's wrong? You look like you're in a daze. Boss Mang looking for you must not have been a good thing. I don't even know if it's a good thing or not. Uncle Lee stared blankly for a moment before continuing. Boss Mang gave me a new job, Xiao AI's breeder. I'm responsible for managing all the accounts for his newest project, Sun City. That really is a good thing. The young man got excited. Even though the title sounds a bit weird, Sun City is the Stellar House biggest project right now. You're managing all the accounts. This position is practically on par with the captain. Besides, you went in there for further training for so long. You must have learned quite a few accounting tricks. Hey, Uncle Lee looked at him with a strange expression. You can eat whatever you want, but you can't just say whatever you want. Who's cooking the books? Cooking the books for Boss Mang? I think you're the one who wants to be cooked. Actually, I think this is a good thing. Uncle Lee let out a soft breath. It fits my expertise, and the future potential is huge. It's a job I can actually do, and the authority isn't small either. There's just one thing I don't understand. What is it? Boss Mang said that later on. He'll hand the zombie monster cage and the cultivation cabin over to you to manage. The young man paused for a beat, coughed lightly, and couldn't stop the corners of his mouth from curling up. Uncle Lee, I've learned quite a bit during this time. If Boss Mang is entrusting me with such a heavy responsibility, I'm willing to give it a try. That's exactly what confuses me the most. Uncle Lee shook his head. Even you are about to stand on your own 2 feet and take charge of a cabin. When clearly, at the beginning, you were just a clueless town youth. Times make the hero, the young man said with a smile. Joining Boss Mang's train and following you, Uncle Lee, it'd be hard not to stand on my own 2 feet. Don't worry, I will absolutely never forget your kindness in training me and recognizing my potential. You've used up all the fancy words you've learned in your life, haven't you? Pretty much. Uncle Lee took a deep breath, grabbed his spatial bag, and stuffed it into his clothes. I have to go find Boss AI to report. Sun City isn't too busy right now, so I'll still come back often to perfect the zombie monster cage. Oh right, did you forget to inject Boss Shun with his heart medication over there? He looks like he's about to kick the bucket. Oh, going right now. On the first floor of the Stellar How, a few crew members following Air Dan were transferring crates of resources to the Travel Frog train parked next to it. Upgrading to a level 11 train consumed 2 million units of iron ore, and reaching level 12 took another 3 million. A total of 5 million was gone just like that. Then, another 6.75 million units of iron ore were spent to upgrade the armor straight from level 9 to level 14. In total, 11.75 million units of iron ore had vanished. It really hurt to look at. All done, Chen Mang patted Air Dan's shoulder. Level 12 train, level 14 armor. That should be enough for the purple zone. Probably not many people there have level 14 armor. Is the batch of 1 million iron ore I gave you last time still enough? Enough, it's enough. Air Dan nodded hurriedly. I only use it to craft some food and energy stones, so it doesn't consume much. Then get on your train. Once we enter the purple zone, we'll split up. Yes, sir. Chen Mang turned and stepped into the elevator, heading up to the second floor of the train. Before him was a massive light screen, the boundary between the extreme cold land and the purple zone. 2 large words appeared on the screen, Stone Golem. There were a total of 6 purple zones to choose from, and in the end, he chose the Stone Golem zone. This zone was quite special. Before the apocalypse, it used to be a massive metropolis, consisting of 1 main city and 3 satellite cities, prosperous beyond imagination. Thinking of this, he suddenly had a feeling that this zone probably wouldn't be as peaceful as it seemed. After the apocalypse, in this zone, anyone who entered the city ruins would find their enemy detection radar and similar scanning devices temporarily disabled. Based on Chen Mang's experience, a special situation like this meant there was an 80% chance of finding top-tier loot in the city ruins. He definitely had to go in and take a look. The next moment, as the train slowly started up, a line of text appeared on the control screen. The area ahead is a purple zone, the Stone Golem zone. The highest level monster that can exist is level 15. Current train level is level 12. The danger coefficient is quite high. Please pay attention to safety. The Stellar House forward speed wasn't fast at all. This was a largely unexplored area. If he acted recklessly, he'd just be courting death. As the Stellar House slowly passed through the light screen and entered the planes ahead, the first-floor cabin door opened. Immediately after, the Travel Frog train shot out of the cabin, turning into a streak of brilliant golden light that dashed into the distance, quickly disappearing over the horizon. The Stellar House, however, didn't venture deeper but stopped, setting up camp right there. The enemy detection radar and resource detection radar quickly began operating, prioritizing scanning the surrounding situation before making any further plans. Lines of information continuously scrolled across the screen. Within a 100,000-meter radius, no underground mines detected. There are 3 trains currently mining 1 level 4 titanium crystal ore mine and 2 level 4 iron ore mines. Additionally, there is 1 level 4 iron ore mine and 7 level 3 iron ore mines that are currently unmined. Within the enemy detection radar's range, the highest level monster is level 15, located 72,800 meters away from the Stellar House. It appears to be mating. Yeah, its mating partner seems to be a level 2 rabbit. That level 15 monster is also a rabbit. A rabbit? Chen Meng frowned slightly. A rabbit monster can actually reach level 15? The boss's info appeared on the control screen. Red-skinned rabbit. Level 15. Traits. Extremely fast, usually docile, doesn't actively attack trains, but holds a massive grudge. It will fiercely hunt down any creature that disturbs it, including trains tainted with the scent of a slain red-skinned rabbit. The very next moment, the train's alarm blared piercingly. Warning! Warning! On the enemy radar, a red dot was charging straight at the Stellar with terrifying speed. It completely ignored another train it passed by. Its target was dead set: destroy the Stellar. Chen Meng chuckled and pushed the control stick. It was impossible to return to the extreme cold blue zone for backup now. Fortunately, even though the train's armor couldn't withstand a level 15 monster, its speed was fast enough. Plus, it could fly. Activate immediately. The Stellar speed almost instantly hit its limit of 5,000 kilometers per hour. Chen Meng scoffed coldly, watching the rabbit gradually fall behind on the radar. Trying to outrun me? But soon, he realized something was wrong. 3 more red dots appeared on the radar, also charging straight at him. 1 level 15, 2 level 12s. All of them were red-skinned rabbits. I don't buy this crap. 3 hours later, he bought it. The Stellar parked in the wasteland. Chen Meng sat in the cabin, staring blankly at the 20-plus red dots reappearing on the enemy radar. He stayed silent for a long time before quietly pushing the control stick, his patience nearly depleted. Dozens of red-skinned rabbits, including 3 level 15s and 5 level 14s, had been chasing him relentlessly for 3 whole hours. He was fast enough to theoretically shake them off, but these damn rabbits were like hackers with aimbot. The moment he stopped even for a bit, they would show up on the radar again shortly after. Before coming to this zone, he knew there were many rabbit monsters here, but he never expected them to be this clingy. More importantly, these rabbits could fly. Flying rabbits. That sounded even more absurd than Adam being allergic to apples. In reality, the number of rabbits chasing him was probably in the thousands. It was just that the Vanguard always maintained a group of over 10. The others were either too low level to keep up or lacked the stamina and had to rest, letting other rabbits take over in a relay. His rabbit cloud wheels were far inferior to magnetic levitation. If he flew, they would catch up, but running on the ground could still create some distance. The scariest part was that the stone golem zone bordered 5 other zones, all of which were white or yellow zones, and 1 red zone. There were absolutely no other purple zones. He couldn't even escape to another zone if he wanted to. You love chasing me so much, huh? Chen Meng sat at the control panel, looking at the dozen red dots on the radar. His eyes narrowed, flashing with killing intent. If he didn't wipe out these cursed rabbits, he wouldn't be able to establish a foothold in this zone. The Doomsday autocannons were completely useless. He had tried closing the distance and firing, but their dodging speed was absurdly fast. Xiao AI could lock onto them, but the shells still missed. unless he had thousands of doomsday autocannons laying down covering fire all at once. And right now, he didn't have the money for that. Thinking about this, he really just wanted to curse. What a bunch of damn rabbits. But he had a better idea. The Stellar's speed suddenly spiked, widening the gap with the rabbit horde behind him again. Then, he smoothly landed the train on the ground. He quickly crafted a standard cabin, attached it to the very back, and threw its doors wide open. Next, the train hovered just above the ground and sped forward. Xiao AI, tell Uncle Li and the other two to retreat to the residential cabin. Yes, sir. Chun Mang controlled the Stellar to slowly decelerate, just enough for the rabbit horde behind to catch up. At the same time, he constantly adjusted his course, forcing the rabbits coming from different directions to gather into a single straight line. By now, the three fastest level 15 rabbits had closed in to just a few hundred meters, and the distance was rapidly shrinking. Although both the Stellar and the red-skinned rabbits were incredibly fast, when both sides were at nearly the same speed, entering a state of relative stillness, the flaws became glaringly obvious. The very next moment, the Stellar's speed dropped drastically. The leading level 15 and 14 rabbits couldn't react in time and crashed straight into the newly built cabin at the rear. Now's the time. You cursed, damn rabbits. Chasing me once or twice is one thing, but you just won't quit. Chun Mang reacted with lightning speed. His face twisted in anger as he slammed his fist onto a button on the control panel he had never used before. Purple grade accessory, spatial stasis. Not bad. Purple grade accessory, spatial stasis. Effect, upon activation, all living beings inside the train, except Chun Mang, including the AI, are forcibly put into stasis for 30 minutes. During this time, they retain no memories and their bodies cannot perform any actions. This was an accessory unlocked when the train upgraded to level 7, but he had never used it before because the right situation hadn't arisen. But at this very moment, that accessory finally proved its true worth. Immediately after, the Stellar accelerated violently, leaving the rabbit horde far behind. Xiao AI. Chun Mang sat in the control room and called out a few times. As expected, there was no response. Even Xiao AI was in stasis. The auto patrol system instantly shut down, forcing him to operate everything manually. He grabbed his scepter and strode toward the last car. Fortunately, he had the scepter. Even without standing at the control console, he could still maintain control of the train. Along the way, he didn't stop, just silently thinking to himself that he definitely needed to get some internal transportation for the train later. The distance of several hundred meters from the front to the back of the train was tiring enough to run, but more importantly, it would slow his reaction time in critical moments. Not long after, he reached the final car. Right now, 4 or 5 rabbits with ferocious, bloodshot eyes were suspended in midair. The whole scene looked incredibly bizarre. Chun Mang poked them with his scepter. Their fur was still soft, and he could still feel their body heat, but they had absolutely no reaction. So this is the power of stasis space? It's truly absurd. It completely ignores levels. As long as it's a living creature inside the train, everything is frozen, even the AI. This accessory was like a loss prevention mechanism for critical moments. Suppose the AI betrayed him, or an uncontrollable riot broke out on the train. Just activating this would force a complete reset. As expected, things that could appear on the train's crafting list were never useless. He didn't activate the hundreds of heavy machine guns on the ceiling of the car. Level 15 and 16 ammo was too expensive, even more expensive than Doomsday autocannon shells. He really couldn't bear to buy them. Immediately, he crafted a level 1 spatial portal in the car, then pushed the suspended rabbit monsters inside one by one. That's right, push them in. Perhaps because they were mid-leap before being frozen, even when pushed, they didn't fall, but slid horizontally through the air. 1, 2, 3. Before long, all the rabbit monsters were pushed into the spatial portal. Chun Mang let out a breath. Standing at the connection between car 15 and car 16, he gripped the railing of car 15 tightly, then forcibly dismantled the spatial portal in car 16. The next moment, the spatial portal in car 16 shattered, bursting into countless shards of white light in the air. The strongest monsters in this zone, level 15S and level 14S, were just like that, reduced to dust, crushed to death by the collapsing space. That's a bit overpowered. Chen Meng stood at the edge of car 15, chuckling softly as he looked at the gruesome scene in car 16. This kind of spatial collapse attack fundamentally didn't care what level monster you were or how strong your defense was. It was a direct, tear-ignoring slaughter. Theoretically, as long as the coordination was good enough, plus a bit of luck, he could even use this mechanic to kill a level 100 monster. Of course, whether a level 100 monster's defense could withstand this level of spatial distortion was something he couldn't be sure of. Furthermore, he wasn't the only one with this trick. Every train could do it. Spatial portal plus stasis space was an accessory combo that almost every captain possessed. The most dangerous place in this world was never being surrounded by a horde of monsters, but being trapped inside someone else's train. Every captain held absolute control over their own train. On their own turf, they were the absolute king. Even if God himself came, it would be useless. Running inside someone else's train was basically no different from courting death. Fortunately, Chen Meng never had the habit of casually being a guest. The only pity was that, perhaps due to the judgment mechanics, those monsters were defaulted as dying from a natural disaster, rather than being killed by the stellar Hao, so they didn't drop any items. Chen Meng shook his head, not minding it too much, and turned to walk back toward the control room. The stasis space accessory was currently only level 1. He had never upgraded it, but the stasis duration was already up to half an hour. This accessory had no cooldown, but the stasis duration couldn't be cancelled. Right now, there were still 24 minutes of effect left. When passing by the residential car, he specifically stepped into the spatial portal to take a look. Honestly, the scene before him was quite bizarre. All the residents were frozen in place, completely motionless, looking like wax figures. It was so quiet it made one's hair stand on end. Chen Meng frowned slightly. He saw a resident with his head bowed, lighting a cigarette. The flame on the lighter was dancing right in front of the cigarette at the corner of the man's mouth. It was just that the flame seemed to be in stasis as well. He walked over, tried bringing his hand close to the flame, and touched it. An orange-red flame, with no heat. Even fire was directly put into stasis. How impressive. This way, it could also prevent fires during the time-space was frozen. Chen Meng's expression was a bit strange. He suddenly thought of a rather interesting game. Once he was completely safe, he definitely had to try it out. With that thought, he left the residential car. When passing by car number 5, he pulled open the corridor door and saw Gue Chu and Yin Yao sitting on the bed chatting. Right now, both of their bodies were fixed in place, their lips slightly parted. Clearly, they were talking a second ago and frozen the next. He walked over and touched them a few times. The tactile sensation was completely normal, not stiff at all. It was just this feeling. Chen Meng gripped his scepter tightly, sensing the information on the enemy detection radar. There were no more rabbits catching up. The remaining low-level rabbits fundamentally couldn't keep up with the train's speed, and the stasis space still had 22 minutes left. He glanced again at Gue Chu in front of him. Her red lips were slightly parted, as if she was smiling and saying something to Yin Yao. Human nature, it's understandable. The time is just enough. He suddenly realized that this accessory must carry another layer of meaning, just like the saying, stealing half a day of leisure. Half a day, for him, was enough. He laid Gue Chu down on the bed. Throughout the process, the car was terrifyingly quiet, without any resistance whatsoever. This was a very strange feeling he had never experienced before, but it wasn't bad. 20 minutes later, he placed Gue Chu back in her original position. He used a tissue to wipe away the remaining traces on her lips before leaving the car. Initially, he was wondering how to spend the remaining stasis time, but now he had his answer. Returning to the control room, Chen Meng felt refreshed. He sat down at the control console and lit a cigarette. He watched the lines of information continuously scrolling across the screen. You have slain a level 15 red-skinned rabbit. You have slain. He had thought that killing monsters through the spatial portal mechanic wouldn't be counted as the stellar house kills, but unexpectedly, the system recorded it. In that case, the lack of drops could only mean that everything had been crushed by the spatial portal. What a waste, he sighed softly. Just then, the stasis space effect ended, and the train immediately returned to its familiar noisy state. Warning. Xiao Ai paused. Captain, where did those level 15 red-skinned rabbits go? Dead. Chen Meng glanced at the enemy detection radar, slowly decelerated, and came to a complete stop. The train landed on the ground with a heavy thud from a low altitude. Have Team 1 disembark and prepare to engage the enemy. Yes, sir. Chasing him wasn't just the initial few rabbits, but all the red-skinned rabbits in the zone. It was just that the ones that managed to catch up were the highest level and fastest ones. The real army was still behind. But facing this army of red-skinned rabbits, Chen Meng had absolutely no intention of running anymore. His train already had level 14 armor. Aside from the level 15 red-skinned rabbits, the other levels charging at him were basically just delivering themselves as food. Clearly, these rabbits were determined to fight him to the death. If he didn't wipe out the red-skinned rabbits in this zone, he wouldn't be able to establish a foothold here. This zone was different from the others. Once you entered, you couldn't retreat back to the blue zone, even if your train was only level 12 and hadn't reached level 13 yet. By now, his 3-hour-long chase had caused the train radio to blow up. Did someone really charge straight into the purple zone without any preparation? The biggest rule of the stone golem zone is not to kill the red-skinned rabbits. Does that guy not know? What guts? This is the first time I've seen a train outrun a level 15 red-skinned rabbit in a straight race. The sonic boom back then almost deafened me. It flashed right past my eyes. That speed is just insane. But red-skinned rabbits hold massive grudges. They fight to the death, and they breed fast. Who knows how many there are in this zone? No matter how fast a train is, it still consumes energy stones. How long can his iron or keep him running? Plus, he can't even cross into another zone. Hearing these words, Chen Meng just smirked slightly. Very good. It's not that bad. It just depends on whether his train has expanded its capacity. If it hasn't expanded and has a drill accessory, he can totally hide underground. It's expanded. I saw that train. I think it's called the Stellar How. It has over 10 cars in total. The expansion isn't small. With that size, there's absolutely no way it can burrow underground. These guys sure know how to keep their mouths shut. Chen Meng sat at the control console, looking at the chat logs on the train radio, and couldn't help but sigh softly. Over the past 3 hours, he wasn't just running. He had also thrown out quite a few free Neon City admission tickets. After so long, some trains must have picked them up. He thought someone would mention it on the radio, but unexpectedly, not a single person brought it up. Their lips were terrifyingly sealed. It wasn't that he hadn't thought about using the drill to hide underground, but he couldn't hide down there forever. He came to the purple zone to mine higher-level minerals and seize better opportunities. To upgrade his train higher and travel further, not to come here and hide like a rat. So what if there are a lot of them? Just kill them all and be done with it. He wanted to see exactly how many rabbits were in this zone, and he had nearly 20 million units of or to burn here. After waiting another 7 or 8 minutes, the fastest batch of level 12 and 13 red-skinned rabbits arrived, panting heavily. The Doomsday autocannons swept the area once. Immediately after, Zhang Yi, piloting the Pontiff mech, roared and charged forward with the giant spiked club. Die! Accompanied by a furious roar, an energy stone on the back of the Pontiff mech began to flash. Then, arcs of lightning shot out in all directions with it at the center, covering a range of over 10 meters, directly locking all the surrounding red-skinned rabbits in place. Chen Meng was a bit surprised. This mech actually had an active skill? He genuinely didn't know about this. He had too many things to handle every day. He couldn't grasp every single detail. Not bad. He looked back at the control screen. The rest had nothing to do with him anymore. Monsters at this level fundamentally couldn't break the train's defense. He was basically safe now. When the next batch of level 15 red-skinned rabbits arrived exhausted from the chase, he would just use the same trick again. Just now, the stasis space had consumed 1/5 of a level 4 energy stone, equivalent to 100,000 units of iron ore. This accessory determined its energy consumption based on the number of living creatures in the cars and their levels. Then he glanced at the refrigerator next to him. Perfect. The drops from this batch of rabbits could all be thrown into the shop to sell. It was just that. Chen Meng looked at the refrigerator in confusion. Why was there suddenly a huge pile of random stuff inside? Where did they come from? He had absolutely no recollection. Moreover, He had clearly used a few ink jadeites to upgrade the travel frog's armor. Yet now, there was an extra one left over. Can this thing reproduce asexually? He frowned and opened the train log to check, wanting to confirm if there was some system error. Suddenly getting extra items was a good thing, but he at least needed to know the reason, otherwise he wouldn't feel at ease. It was like before the apocalypse, if $1,000 suddenly appeared at the head of your bed every night. Even though it's a good thing, you'd still feel uneasy, even wondering if you had crossed over to the underworld and this money was being burned for you by the living. Very quickly, the answer appeared. Chen Meng quietly rubbed his nose, lit a cigarette, and coughed lightly. Then he turned off the train radio. How should he put this? After upgrading his high-power magnet accessory to level 100, its collection range had reached 10,000 meters. Just now, as he continuously ran in circles around this zone for 3 hours, he had sucked up all the loot dropped from the monster kills of countless other people into his train. It was just that. It seemed no one knew he was the one who picked it up. After all, this thing didn't display loot logs to others. Those people just stared blankly as the items in front of them suddenly disappeared, completely unaware of what had happened. It seemed this accessory was quite smart. It didn't suck back the free Neon City admission tickets he had thrown out, knowing they were his items. Not bad. Chen Meng coughed lightly and withdrew his gaze from the control screen. Today was the first day Neon City officially began operations. Even though he was physically in the control room, his mind had long since flown to Neon City. Once he finished dealing with these rabbits, he definitely had to go take a look. Xiao AI, I'm here. Tell Li Shiji and Uncle Li to report to the Neon City area immediately. Also, send one of your bodies there to be stationed permanently. Yes, Captain. Then what task should be assigned to Li Shiji? Isn't he good at game design? Have him go to Neon City and design a few games to recover stellar credits. Understood. Everything was operating in an orderly manner. In this desperate apocalypse, this desolate wasteland, the captain of the Stellar How was steadily growing stronger. From nearly starving to death in this world, he had now rightfully become a regional overlord. It was just that the title of a regional overlord still wasn't enough to satisfy Chen Meng's appetite. What he wanted was to be the global overlord. Only then would he truly feel a sense of security. In high-tier talent car number 5, Choo-choo. Yin Yao sat on the bed, looking at Gui Choo-choo opposite her, and asked in confusion, "Why did you suddenly stop talking mid-sentence?" Gui Choo-choo felt the familiar taste lingering in her mouth, then looked at the bedsheets beside her that had somehow become messy. Then she glanced at her iris chip and realized that time had suddenly skipped forward by half an hour. A possibility quickly surfaced in her mind. Looking at Yin Yao's confused expression, she froze for a moment, then broke into a blooming smile, turning her head to look out the window. "It's nothing. I just suddenly felt that Boss Meng is actually quite cute." "Why would you suddenly say that?" "I just feel that Boss Meng isn't actually that serious. He has a cute side too. Weren't we just talking about the newly crafted exquisite clothes?" Yin Yao looked at Gui Choo-choo in confusion. Why did the topic suddenly shift to Boss Meng? Did something happen? "It's nothing." "All right then. But Choo-choo, it's the apocalypse now. Can we just be honest with each other for a bit? I really want to ask you, are you friends with me because you genuinely like me? Or just because my dad sponsored your education, so you treat me as a best friend?" The smile on Gui Choo-choo's face stiffened slightly. After a moment, she looked at Yin Yao and shook her head helplessly. "Yin Yao, sometimes you really make it hard for me to know how to answer. How should I put this? There are a lot of things it's better you don't know. It's very complicated." "How complicated could it be?" Yin Yao pouted. "Isn't it just about sleeping together? If you don't sleep around, how do you get resources? Isn't the entertainment industry just like that?" Gui Choo-choo stayed silent for a moment before continuing. "It's much more complicated than you think. Let me tell you a few simple stories. The fairy tale couple that was universally acknowledged in the industry back then, Wang Hai and Li Ding. Do you remember them? Back then, you shipped them for a long time, saying you also longed for such pure love." "Of course I remember. The two of them were so sweet." "Yeah, Wang Hai was at the peak of his popularity back then, and his family was one of the major financial conglomerates in the Federation. Meanwhile, Li Ding was just an ordinary college student. Take a guess. How did she manage to hold on to Wang Hai so tightly?" In their 5 years together, Li Ding had cosmetic surgery down there 5 times, just to ensure it was tight enough. Wang Hai's schedule was very busy, so the two rarely met. Every time they met, Li Ding would take massive amounts of birth control pills to ensure she wasn't on her period and use all sorts of injections to adjust her body, just to be in peak condition that day and give Wang Hai the perfect experience. And that was only a very small part of what she did. Do you still think they were sweet now? Huh. Yin Yao froze, unable to believe it. But I clearly felt that Wang Hai loved Li Ding very much. Love? Guo Chu shook her head. Wang Hai was an incredibly cold-blooded person. To prevent Li Ding from getting pregnant and using it to climb higher, he secretly got a vasectomy. What love? Many things are better just heard and forgotten. Before Li Ding secured her position, she was trained for 4 whole years. In those 4 years, she didn't learn anything else. She only learned one thing: the art of taming dragons. Before the apocalypse, which rich person hadn't been caught in a trap, including your father? Guo Chu stopped and didn't continue, just shaking her head slightly. Never mind. Talking about these things now has no meaning anymore. It's the apocalypse. Yan Yao thought of her father, instinctively turning her head to look out the window, and muttered, "Chu, do you think my dad is still alive? A good person like him will definitely have a good ending, right?" Guo Chu didn't answer, just smiling as she looked at the scenery outside the window. In her smile, there was a faint hint of mockery, almost imperceptible. In Neon City, the number of captains was constantly increasing. From the initial 30 or so, it had gradually surpassed 90. Uncle Li sat at a computer desk placed next to the floor-to-ceiling window of the Sun City building. His fingers typed rapidly on the keyboard, his eyes fixed on the detailed ledger on the secondary monitor, quickly compiling a report. "Boss AI, isn't this recruitment reward a bit too low? Recruiting a newcomer only rewards 500 stellar credits. This level is only attractive to low-level trains. It has absolutely no appeal to high-level trains." Xiao AI nodded, speaking seriously. Boss Mang's idea is to apply different rewards for recruiting trains of different levels. For example, a train in the white zone rewards 500 stellar credits, while one in the green zone rewards 2,000 stellar credits. The higher the train's level, the stronger their spending power. This part has already been set up. Understood. Uncle Lee nodded and continued to focus on the accounts. At this moment, Neon City had accumulated about 8.78 million units of iron ore. The number fluctuated constantly, rising and falling. After finishing their spending, many captains would exchange all their remaining stellar credits back into iron ore before leaving Neon City, having absolutely no intention of keeping them. Boss AI, no one wants to keep stellar credits in their accounts. This puts a massive amount of pressure on Neon City's iron ore reserves. That's right. Xiao AI nodded again. Boss Mang vetoed the idea of restricting iron ore withdrawals or requiring advance appointments. This is the apocalypse, not the pre-apocalyptic world. Iron ore is the lifeblood of every train. If they can't exchange stellar credits for iron ore in time, people will panic extremely. Therefore, Boss Mang's intention is not to set any thresholds. As long as they want to withdraw, they can take it at any time, ensuring their ability to liquidate assets during a crisis. The early stage will be a chaotic and aggressive expansion. Once the number of users reaches a certain level, admission tickets will no longer be distributed for free. Instead, they will have to be purchased with stellar credits. After that, Boss Mang plans to try implementing a deposit with interest mechanism. However, this plan is currently still in its infancy. In the apocalypse, with dangers piling up, very few people are willing to deposit their iron ore outside, no matter how high the interest rate is. Immediately improving combat power is still the #1 priority, so in the future, this plan might be presented in other forms. Understood. Uncle Lee didn't say anything more and went back to doing the accounts. He was building an automated spreadsheet, so the workload would be greatly reduced in the future. After all, there was no need for complex reporting here, just statistical data. The pressure wasn't high. Beside him, Li Shiji was rapidly designing on his screen. The next moment, Chun Meng suddenly appeared in front of the floor-to-ceiling window. Uncle Li Shiji, and the others immediately stood up. "Greetings, Boss Meng." Chun Meng nodded, not saying much. He just leaned on his scepter, standing by the floor-to-ceiling window, looking down at the bustling scene below. A moment later, he chuckled softly. Don't just stand here. Go down and take a walk. You have to blend into the crowd to know what people really want. Amidst the crowd, Chen Meng walked on the street, observing the captains coming and going, curiously exploring. He wasn't wearing a mask. Quite a few people had heard of the stellar Hao, and some had heard the name Chen Meng, but not many had actually seen his face. And even if they recognized him, so what? If others could come in, couldn't he? Why overthink it and tire himself out? Boss Meng. Li Shiji followed behind, explaining his ideas as they walked. Before, when I was a game designer, I made quite a few online games. The profit of online games mainly comes from microtransactions. Although Neon City isn't an online game, there are actually many similarities. Of course, we can't sell stats or cosmetics. But one of the biggest microtransaction categories in online games is the gacha system. We can design a few lucky wheels. Just spend a few stellar credits, and you have a chance to win the grand prize. For example, a 500 stellar credit prize pool wheel, where the grand prize is a level 10 refrigerator. A 2,000 stellar credit prize pool wheel, where the grand prize is an ink jadeite. Additionally, we can set up minor prizes like a 10% discount coupon for 10 pulls, or a 20% discount coupon for 100 pulls. We can even design a pity system where the 289th pull guarantees the grand prize. We also have many items with low costs, but high profit margins. For example, the memory bank. The money earned from that is practically pure profit. If we scrap the purchasing service and only keep the memory selling service, it'd be quite good. Chen Meng smiled and interrupted, put the memory bank on hold for now. Not many people meet the mental strength requirements to implant memories. But your Lucky Will idea is very interesting. Arrange to implement it. No problem. So, should we use pseudo-RNG or true RNG? With pseudo-RNG, we'd set a profit-loss ratio. True RNG. If we're going to play, let's play for real. You figure out the probabilities yourself. No problem. Then Boss Meng, can I select a few items that will only appear on the Lucky Wheel? Items that can't be bought any other way except through the wheel? You can. Chen Meng frowned slightly, turning his head to look at the packed red light district shops on both sides of the street. Uncle Li, how much profit have these shops made so far? 1.08 million stellar credits. Good lord. Chen Meng was slightly taken aback. It had only been 4 or 5 hours, and these red light shops had already earned over 1 million, accounting for nearly 1/10 of the total revenue. At first, he just considered these places as extra decorations. He really didn't think anyone in the apocalypse would spend iron or on this kind of stuff. But reality was clearly far from his expectations. The first time Neon City opened, many people visited the red light district because they had no money and couldn't afford anything else. But this time, it was all real money, real or. Chen Meng stayed silent for a moment, then said, "Go back and tell Lao Zhu to check the train and see if anyone worked as a pimp before the apocalypse. These robot pimps aren't professional enough. Find some people with actual experience." "Yes, sir." He didn't quite get it, but if there was money to be made, he'd make it first. Let's look at the books. What are people buying the most? Uncle Li swiped on his tablet and quickly reported, the highest revenue comes from the casino. In 4 hours, the revenue has reached 21.89 million. According to your rules, Boss Meng, the casino doesn't bet against the guests. We just let them bet against each other, and the casino takes a cut. The commission rate is 3% from the winner. The exact data is still being calculated. Quite a few train captains joined in. Some of them had prior grudges and gambled until their eyes turned red. Especially 2 level 12 mechanical train captains. Those 2 alone contributed 16.82 million in revenue. Chen Meng nodded. The revenue sounded massive, but the actual amount of iron or exchanged wasn't that huge. After all, one person wins from another, and it goes back and forth. The revenue was just the total cash flow, not the net profit. Uncle Li continued scrolling. Next are the spatial bags, including the level 10 refrigerators. They're all selling very well. The random white-grade accessory blueprints have been wiped clean. We currently have no way to restock them. Finally, the suggestion board. There's one suggestion that's been brought up quite a bit. They suggest that Neon City shouldn't allow slave trading. The second suggestion is that there isn't enough variety of goods. The third suggestion is that it's not friendly to low-level trains. There are very few things they can afford. Chen Meng walked along the street, nodding without saying much. These were all great suggestions, but they couldn't be resolved immediately. One of the biggest functions of a trading market was slave trading, but Neon City couldn't do that because it was restricted by the rules. All captains entering and leaving Neon City could only bring their own train members. They couldn't use another captain's entry ticket to leave and board that person's train. From the very beginning, Neon City was destined to be unable to facilitate slave trading. There was no way around it. As for the variety of goods, he was trying his best. He had kept quite a few white-grade accessory blueprints. He could take the time to draw more items similar to the spatial bags to enrich the store's inventory. As for it not being friendly to low-level trains, there was even less he could do about that. Low-level trains didn't have much money to begin with, and he wasn't expecting to profit off them anyway. The main purpose of these low-level trains was for promotion, and then, by earning more iron ore, they could upgrade to higher-level zones sooner, mine high-grade ore, and then come back to spend it. This was an early investment. Letting them starve for a while was fine. After all, the items in the store were never meant for low-level trains in the first place. Just one of his level 10 refrigerators cost 4,500 units of iron ore to make. Even if he sold it at cost, barely any low-level trains could afford it. To put it bluntly, they were never in the same target demographic to begin with. After that, Chen Meng didn't say anything else. He just led Uncle Li and the others on a casual stroll through the designated commercial district. Just over 90 captains bringing their subordinates shopping had brought in nearly 10 million units of iron ore, 8.78 million, to be exact. If this population scale continued to expand, reaching 900, 9,000, or even 90,000 people, then he would truly strike it rich. Moreover, if Neon City really reached that level, calling himself the savior of humanity wouldn't be an exaggeration. This would be the only city on the planet that allowed free trade, giving countless trains a chance to survive and drastically reducing the rate of train destruction. Thinking about this, even he felt a bit ambitious. But it was the apocalypse. If you weren't ambitious, you died first. All right. After walking around, Chen Meng looked at Uncle Li and Li Shiji. For the next few days, you guys are in charge of staying here. Let's work together to make Neon City even bigger. I've granted you very high clearance. If you have any ideas, don't hold back. Just go for it. Don't worry about making mistakes. Even if a major mistake happens, it's fine. The user base is still small right now. If there's a bug, we can fix it quickly. Understood? Understood. Li Shiji and Uncle Li immediately stood up straight and replied solemnly. I'm heading out. If there's anything you can't decide on, report back to me. Yes, sir. He didn't linger any longer, immediately leaving Neon City and returning to the control cabin. The control cabin was spacious, surrounded by floor-to-ceiling glass windows. At night, under the starry sky, the roar of the doomsday mechanical cannons echoed endlessly. Chen Meng leaned back in his chair, his eyes resting on the bed in the corner of the room. The bed was placed against two walls. When sleeping at night, he would set the glass to a completely opaque state, so you couldn't even see outside from the inside. He liked sleeping with his back against the wall. It gave him a sense of security. A small habit, but in the apocalypse, it was very important. This thing, it should sell well, right? The bed's level 5 super effect. Pillows and bedding sets could be freely chosen, like buckwheat pillows, silicone pillows, or jade pillows. The level 10 super effect improves sleep quality and extends lifespan. Chen Meng felt that these two effects would be extremely useful for most captains. Just by spending a few stellar cards, they could significantly improve their quality of life and even extend their lifespan. Of course, the value of the latter effect was much higher than the former. After all, in the apocalypse, extending one's lifespan was a luxury concept. What was worth noting was that the cost was incredibly cheap. Crafting one only required exactly 1 unit of wood. Crafting a single bed consumed wood, while upgrading it consumed iron ore. After spending 2,500 units of iron ore, he upgraded his single bed straight to level 100, gaining 3 brand new super effects. Level 20 super effect. Instantly absorbs urine if you wet the bed. Level 50 super effect. Sleeping on this bed long-term slightly enhances overall physical constitution. Level 100 Super Effect. After embedding a dreamstone, there is a chance to bring out an item from your dream every time you dream. The higher the value of the item, the more dreamstone energy is consumed. A bed worth 508,000 units of iron ore, level 100. This was probably the most expensive single bed on the planet. Its effects were so powerful it was almost absurd, making one unsure whether to laugh or be terrified. Dreamstone? Shen Meng looked at the dreamstone that had reached 100% progress on the control panel. He took out a small, sparkling 7-colored stone, deep in thought. This dreamstone had been completed since yesterday, but before this, it had no clear use. To think it was used for a level 100 single bed. However, he was very clear on one thing. There couldn't possibly be a second person who owned a level 100 single bed. So the true use of the dreamstone definitely didn't stop here. Thinking of that, he suddenly got the feeling that he hadn't fully explored this thing's potential yet. Still holding the dreamstone, he walked over to the single bed and placed the stone into the groove at the headboard. Randomly bringing out an item from a dream? I can try it when I sleep later. Who knows, I might pull out something weird. Thinking about it, he could also craft a few level 5 and level 10 beds to display in the store and see if anyone buys them. This thing was like the refrigerator. Both were individually upgraded items that didn't take up an accessory slot. It felt like it had quite a bit of potential, just a little unorthodox. Just then, Chun Meng let out a soft his eyes lighting up. Mengda had returned. His current iron ore balance was 34 million. He was still 6 million short of upgrading the armor to level 15. Originally, he planned to wait until morning and mine the ore himself. But since Mengda was back, it seemed he didn't need to wait anymore. It was highly likely that this guy had brought back another familiar haul of ill-gotten gains. Quick, invite Mengda in. Not long after, Mengda and Daba entered the control cabin together. However, Mengda kept his head down the entire time, not saying a word. Shen Meng looked at the two of them, raising an eyebrow. What's wrong? Got your heart broken? Daba hurriedly explained from the side. Boss Mengda's results weren't great this time. He only made 7 million units of iron ore through trading. He feels like he let you down, Boss Meng. Daba paused for a moment before adding. His luck was bad this time. The zones he went to already knew his reputation. It's fine. Shen Meng shook his head, his tone very relaxed. It's a small matter. Cheer up. 7 million units of iron ore is enough. He paused for a beat, as if suddenly remembering something. By the way, are there any female goblins in your goblin tribe? After all, your entire tribe only has a little over 100 people. As a race, that number is way too small. Have you ever thought about reproducing? A hint of sorrow flashed into Ba's eyes before he shook his head. No. Boss Meng, I appreciate your kindness, but my tribesmen and I currently exist in this world in a form akin to the undead. We have lost the right to reproduce in the universe. He spoke slowly, his voice very calm. Unless the day comes when civilization is truly rebuilt and the goblin tribe is officially restored, only then can we reconstruct our bodies and regain the right to reproduce. Shen Meng stayed silent for a moment, then nodded. All right, I understand. You guys can step down for now. After Daba and the others left, he let out a soft sigh. This situation was more complicated than he thought. Perhaps because their conversations were so smooth, he had forgotten that Daba's true nature was essentially a zombie-like monster, just one that had awakened its consciousness. Thinking of this, he didn't dig any deeper. This matter wasn't important right now. He looked down at his iron ore balance, 41 million units. This was just enough to upgrade the armor to level 15. No need to hesitate, upgrade it first. This was the purple zone, where the highest monster level reached 15. If the armor wasn't level 15, his sense of security would be really poor. If he had upgraded the armor to level 15 the moment he entered the purple zone, he probably wouldn't have struggled so much. Back then, he could have just sat still, letting the wind and rain batter him while he stood firm. A true win-by-doing-nothing scenario. From level 13 to level 14, each carriage required 3 million units of iron ore. From level 14 to level 15, each carriage required 5 million. The Stellar had a total of 14 carriages, plus the locomotive and the monster carriage. The total cost was 80 million. After being halved, it still cost 40 million units of iron ore. When the 40 million units of iron ore completely vanished from the reserve, the Stellar's armor finally reached level 15, a level so exaggerated it felt a bit unreal. The price was all the resources he had accumulated over the past few days, wiped completely clean. It still hurt a little. Chen Meng sat in his chair and sighed, feeling bad for himself, but feeling even worse for others. Even he had such a hard time upgrading. He couldn't even imagine how agonizing it would be for other trains to upgrade their defensive accessories. Thinking of this, he could only shake his head and stop dwelling on it. He stood up, took a quick shower, and lay down on the bed, ready to sleep. Before falling asleep, he even gave himself a little auto-suggestion. Dream about a level 100 train, then bring back a piece of level 10 iron ore. The request wasn't actually that high. Just one piece was enough. That wasn't too much to ask, right? In a drowsy state, he drifted off to sleep. In his dream, he found himself on a city subway, dressed sharply in a suit, heading to work. The feeling was very hazy, as if he hadn't slept well the night before. The next moment, chaotic screams suddenly erupted from the front of the train car. He didn't know what was happening, only instinctively running with the crowd. After running for a bit, he suddenly fell into a river. The water was pitch black. At the bottom lay countless giant statues scattered about, with only a portion jutting above the surface. The surroundings were terrifyingly quiet, and a sense of dread quickly welled up in his heart. He tried to swim. After swimming for about 5 minutes, he suddenly realized a very troubling fact. It seemed he didn't know how to swim. His previously stable body instantly lost control and began to sink. The sensation of choking on water and suffocating made him extremely uncomfortable. While thrashing wildly, he spotted a woman squatting by the riverbank, washing her hair. Without thinking, he grabbed her hair like a drowning man clutching at a final lifeline, desperately trying to climb up. However, that hair was unreasonably long, stretching 20 or 30 meters. It took an immense amount of effort for him to finally climb up, only to discover a truth that instantly turned the entire dream sour. The woman had her, but facing the river. The thing she was washing wasn't hair, but ass hair. Before he could even open his mouth, the ground suddenly shook violently, and a feeling of weightlessness washed over him. Chen Meng was jolted awake by the nightmare. He sat up abruptly in bed, turning his head to look out the window. It was already noon. He had slept for 6 or 7 hours, but it was incredibly uncomfortable. It seemed even a level 100 bed couldn't save him from terrible dreams. He touched his back and felt a layer of cold sweat. After taking a shower and changing clothes, he finally sat down at the control panel. Lighting a cigarette, he looked at the single bed in the corner with a complicated expression. He wasn't even in a rush to check the train log. Ever since upgrading the bed to level 10, he had almost never had a nightmare, because the bed's level 10 super effect was improving sleep quality. Yet, during his sleep last night, he didn't feel any improvement whatsoever. Right then, his gaze landed on the dreamstone embedded in the headboard. The stone was blinking very faintly, as if silently sending out a signal. Could this thing be the cause of the trouble, just because it wanted him to have a dream? Chen Meng stayed silent for a moment, then stood up, walked over to the bed, and gently placed his hand on the dreamstone. At that exact moment, a small portal appeared next to the headboard, and a lock of hair fell out of it. This was exactly what had appeared in his dream. No, wait. This wasn't hair. It was ass hair. Thinking of this, his mouth twitched. It felt both disgusting and hilarious. But what use did this thing have? He frowned in thought, his mind racing. This thing couldn't be completely useless. If it were truly useless, it wouldn't have become a special function of the train after upgrading to level 12. Dreamstone, level 100 bed. A vague hypothesis gradually formed in his mind. In the development process of any civilization, it was inevitable to face and explore two things, death and dreams. They could be studied through science, philosophy, or even theology. Either way, whether through hypotheses or sacrifices, they would eventually have to touch upon them. The mechanical civilization must have also researched dreams, achieved some breakthroughs, and then installed them on the trains to serve the captains. This dreamstone was somewhat like an energy stone, belonging to a specific type of energy source. Right now, The dreamstone embedded in the headboard showed 99% capacity remaining. I'll try again tonight. Chun Meng made up his mind, then spoke up. Xiao AI, come here and take this lock of hair. See if there's anything special about it. Yes, sir. He watched Xiao AI's back, remaining silent. In this world, nothing was born naturally without a reason. The memory of last night's dream had gradually faded. He wasn't even sure if this lock of hair was the same one he had grabbed in the river during his dream. But one thing was very clear to him. An object from a dream appearing in reality was already an incredibly unbelievable phenomenon. It seemed the civilization level of the mechanical civilization was perhaps even higher than he had imagined. They had touched upon both death and dreams. Daba and the others were dead, yet they could still exist normally as monsters. Thinking of this, Chen Meng shook his head, brushing aside his wandering thoughts. The main priority right now was still to upgrade quickly, try to enter the 7-color zone as soon as possible, and raise the train's level high enough. The higher you stand, the further you see. This logic was even truer in the apocalypse. He had just picked up Xiao Lu from the bed, intending to casually set it aside, when he suddenly thought of something. His eyes narrowed slightly as he looked down at Xiao Lu in his arms. Xiao Lu was still sleeping soundly. It would only officially wake up when the train reached level 15. And the single bed didn't explicitly state that a human or a captain had to lie on it to trigger the effect. So, what would be in Xiao Lu's dreams? Was it possible to bring something out from Xiao Lu's dream? Could he even bring out a living creature? If he really could bring out living creatures, then Xiao Lu's childhood playmates would definitely appear in its dreams, bringing back a few starry sky behemoths. The moment this thought flashed through his mind, it sent a slight chill down his spine. Forget it. As long as I don't bring its mother out, it's fine. If that scene actually happened. The aqua blue planet originally had 4 years left before its destruction. If its mother descended upon this planet, the apocalypse would arrive instantly. Congratulations, you have significantly shortened the countdown to the end of human civilization. Just thinking about it was great. After that, Chen Meng pushed the control stick, steering the train toward the city ruins located in the center of the stone golem zone. Today's goal was to gather some more supplies and casually check why that area could block the enemy radar. Was there some massive treasure hidden there? Sure enough, great skill breeds great courage. With level 15 armor, he wasn't afraid of anything dangerous in that area at all. So what if a level 15 monster appeared? Other trains might be scared, but he, Chen Meng, was not. Right now, the refrigerator next to him was still stuffed with rabbit corpses. If monster meat was edible, he probably would have thrown a meat feast a long time ago. The items that dropped earlier had all been sent back to Neon City. The train maintained a steady speed, neither too fast nor too slow, heading toward its destination. In another corner of the stone golem zone within the purple zone, inside a level 14 mechanical train, an old man was leaning back in his chair, deep in thought. Beside him knelt a mermaid. At this moment, the old man was slowly chewing a red heart pill he had just bought. Red heart pill. 1,000 stellar cards per pill. Specially treats male dysfunction. He had tried eating 2 pills, and the effects were indeed not bad. At 70 or 80 years old, he could finally get hard again. Even though it wasn't like when he was young, this was enough. Neon City, what a great place. He reached out and gave the mermaid beside him a few hard squeezes, quite a few ideas sprouting in his mind. Last night, while fighting a boss, he had kited it for a long time before finally killing it. That boss was extremely bizarre. It didn't drop any items, only a free entry ticket to Neon City. Thinking of this, the corners of his mouth curled up into a somewhat sinister smile. An encounter map. He had already entered it last night. As a result, he discovered that this free entry ticket to Neon City wasn't actually as valuable as he thought, because everyone could claim 20 free tickets every week. At first, he thought he had taken a huge loss this time, but he quickly realized that this encounter map was completely different from normal maps. Not only could you trade freely with other captains, but there were also many stores selling unique items, like the Red Heart pill. To him, this thing was truly a downpour after a long drought. He could finally perform again. It truly felt like a second youth. Earning stellar cards, aside from exchanging iron ore, could also be done by recruiting newcomers. In the purple zone, The reward for recruiting a new train was 50,000 stellar cards. However, he had a much better method. The old man pulled his hand away from the woman beside him, took a card out of the drawer, and stuffed it into his pocket. His eyes flashed with a sharp glint, and then he crushed the free Neon City entry ticket in his hand once again. Recruiting newcomers? The reward was too small. The special item he had never used before finally had a place to shine today. Special item, card. Item effect. Upon activation, it can transform into any playing card, with patterns and details completely identical to the cards in hand. Can be used 12 times a day. A cheater's treasure. His target was very clear, the casino. He wanted to go there and make a massive killing. The remaining stellar cards, whether exchanged for iron or used to buy goods, would be enough to make him rich. If you want to win big, you need to have plenty of trump cards in your hand. Right at this moment, a few burly men carrying several storage crates walked in briskly. His betting capital this time was 20 million units of iron ore. If you're going to play, you play big. There's no such thing as half-heartedly testing the waters. Neon City, Sun City. In a high-rise apartment, Xiao AI stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling glass window. Watching the flow of people on the street, she spoke up. Someone is cheating in the casino. They've already won 4 million. Huh. Uncle Lee turned his head in confusion. Boss Xiao AI, you're standing here looking at the street. How do you know someone is cheating in the casino? Xiao AI turned her head, looking at Uncle Lee with an expressionless face. Because I am an AI. The cameras in the casino feed directly into my database. You're not an idiot, are you? Oh, then I'll go back and inform Boss Mang. No need. At this moment, Sister Chi, standing nearby, smiled and said, there's no need to bother Boss Mang with such a small matter. The casino has been running for so long. We run into cheaters all the time. We have a specialized protocol for dealing with this kind of person. Xiao Ji, invite that guest to the VIP room. What protocol? Chopping off their hands. No. All robots in Neon City have an unalterable directive. They cannot attack others. Our protocol is to fight fire with fire. We'll win every last chip he has. Really? I remember Boss Mang saying the Poison Snake Gang fought with him. That was a special case. If you lose and cause a massive amount of stellar cards to flow out, it will directly crash Neon City. Xiao AI turned to look at Sister Chi, her voice growing a few degrees colder. Don't worry, Sister Chi replied decisively. There won't be any mistakes. Xiao AI shook her head and didn't say anything else. She just turned to Uncle Lee. Make a trip back and tell Boss Mang about this. Yes, ma'am. Boss Mang. Chen Mang nodded, standing by the floor-to-ceiling window, watching the old man at the starting point exchanging stellar cards for iron ore. His voice was calm. So this is the guy who took 8 million units of my iron ore. Yes, Xiao AI reported softly. Sister Chi invited him to the VIP room to gamble, but he refused and left the casino directly. There were a lot of people watching at the time, so it wasn't convenient for us to make a move. It's fine. Chen Mang shook his head. This guy's train name sounds very familiar. I think it appeared on the train radio in the Stone Golem zone. Let him go. I'll find him myself. Have we figured out how he cheated? It's highly likely a sleight of hand combined with a special item. Quite a few captains have special items, especially high-level trains. The variety is vast. No one knows exactly what they have. You guys still need to be careful normally. Chen Mang didn't linger any longer and immediately left Neon City. Right now, his train had less than 1 million units of iron ore left. On the contrary, the iron ore reserves in Neon City hadn't decreased, they had actually increased. Because the casino didn't gamble directly with the guests. Even if the other party won, it was just other people's money. The casino only collected a fee. However, since he cheated right on his turf, this money naturally had to be counted as his. The next moment, all the captains currently in Neon City saw the screens of every store simultaneously switch to the same interface. Bounty board. Rank 1. Purge the Grimace train. Bounty amount. 2 million stellar cards. Bounty poster. Jinba train. Reason for bounty. Cheating in the casino and swindling my stellar cards. Rank 2. Anyway, the plan was to launch a bounty board, so he might as well take this opportunity to roll it out. Ranked by the bounty amount. From now on, anything could be posted on the board. Since they happened to be in the same zone, he might as well kill him while he was at it. Regardless of whether that man actually cheated or not, that iron ore still had to be converted. Neon City needed to maintain the highest level of neutrality. After all, Sun City was just a large store located within Neon City. Neon City was the main entity, while Sun City was not. The rest of the mess could be left for the Stellar to handle. As for the casino's fairness, Sister Chi would sort it out properly. Chen Meng returned to the Stellar's control room, completely unbothered by the minor incident just now. By now, the train had approached the main city ruins in the Stone Golem Zone. It wouldn't be too late to go looking for that so-called Grimace train a little later. What a garbage name. Just hearing it was annoying. The train slowly decelerated and came to a halt, then landed heavily on the ground from midair. In the distance was a city that still vaguely retained a modern appearance. Skyscrapers stood close together, but countless structures had collapsed. The entire city was devoid of any light. The streets were littered with scrapped cars covered in thick dust. No signs of life, no vitality. This was Chio City, the largest city in the Stone Golem Zone. The three surrounding cities were all satellite cities dependent on this place. Chio City. Chen Meng looked at the enemy radar screen. It was currently covered in blurry streaks like a mosaic, obviously unable to function normally. He narrowed his eyes, his voice dropping low. Impressive. A level 100 enemy radar, and it just blocks it just like that. Xiao AI. Tell Squad 1, Squad 2, and Squad 3 to head out and get to work. Instantly, the doors of guard carriage number 7 opened. 2 mechas took the lead, flying out and charging straight toward the city ruins. The remaining guard members were all inside the refrigerators, carried on the mecha's shoulders. The roads in the ruins were too complex. Even off-road motorcycles couldn't move normally. Fortunately, they had the refrigerators to help. Boss AI. Boss AI. Biaozi stood at the edge of the refrigerator, gripping the handrail tightly. He looked down at the city below and called out softly. After calling several times with no response, he rolled his neck and shoulders a bit, his voice hoarse. We've lost connection with the train. Everyone, be careful. The danger deep inside these city ruins is probably no small matter. Brother Biao, don't be scared. Zhang Yi piloted the Pope mecha, carrying a giant spiked club in his hand. He laughed heartily. My spiked club is a weapon with level 15 attack intensity. With me here, I can handle those ordinary small fries all by myself. Biaozi was just about to speak when his face suddenly darkened. Too low. Stop. At that exact moment, Zhang Yi and Zhang Er both stopped midair. They usually joked around with Brother Biao, but when he gave an order, they always obeyed. Partly because the Stellar kept them well fed, and partly because they genuinely admired Brother Biao's performance in the virtual combat training space. And the rest was because they knew their own brains weren't the sharpest. Listening to Brother Biao was always the safest bet. Biaozi didn't say anything. He just stood at the edge of the refrigerator, gripping the handrail tightly, frowning as he looked at the terrace of a nearby low-rise building. There, hanging out to dry, was cured meat. That's right, cured meat. He wasn't happy at all. On the contrary, he felt it was extremely bizarre. The apocalypse had descended for over a year, almost 2 years now. Who knows how many people had scavenged these city ruins? How could there be such an obvious piece of cured meat that hadn't been taken away? Other captains weren't idiots. That could only prove one thing. This place was very likely a trap. Turn around and look at the train. As the mecha turned around, Biaozi looked toward the Stellar parked at the edge of the ruins. They were near the city center now, and even the Stellar looked blurry from here. Boss AI. Boss AI. He tried contacting Xiao AI again, but there was still no response. Brother Biao, could that cured meat down there be a trap? Zhang Er, piloting his Pope mecha and hovering in the air, asked in a deep voice. Biaozi froze, momentarily doubting his own judgment. If even Zhang Er could see it, then probably anyone could. Could it be that no one was stupid enough to use such an obvious trap? How did you figure that out? My brother and I have scavenged for supplies many times. Such an obvious piece of cured meat hasn't been taken by anyone, so there's definitely something wrong with it. 9 times out of 10, it's a trap. Wait a minute. Let me think. Biaozi took a deep breath, his mind racing. If even Zhang Er could tell it was a trap, it meant the enemy intentionally wanted them to see it. What was the purpose? Based on his experience in the Extreme Challenge chip map, when a trap is deliberately laid out in front of you. It usually means they want you to avoid it, and when you detour, you step right into the real trap. That's the second layer. If he thought deeper, it was highly likely the enemy had anticipated him seeing through the second layer, and then intentionally. Just then, "Hey," Zhang Yi's deep voice rang out from behind. "Brother Biao, I brought the cured meat back. Anything else?" Biaozi stood at the edge of the refrigerator, staring blankly at the cured meat pinched between Zhang Yi's fingers, then looked down at the now-empty terrace below, including the dozen or so terrified survivors currently lying in Zhang Yi's refrigerator. After a moment, he asked in disbelief, "Just now? Where did you go?" "I just went down to grab the cured meat and found over a dozen survivors armed with sharp weapons and guns ambushing nearby. But for some reason, they didn't make a move. Since I spotted them, of course I had to bring them back." Biaozi took a deep breath, stayed silent for a moment, and then said, "From now on, without my orders, do not act on your own. Transfer those survivors in your refrigerator over to mine." Very quickly, after a few less than gentle interrogations, the truth was brought to light. It turned out that recently, trains would occasionally send lackeys into the city ruins to scavenge for supplies. These survivors took advantage of that, ambushing and killing straggling lackeys to acquire weapons and food. But when the Pope Mecha landed, they immediately realized they couldn't win and didn't dare make a move. They just didn't expect to still be discovered and captured. Keep them for now. Whether to kill them or not, we'll wait for Boss Mang's orders. Biaozi pulled his gaze away from the group. Only in this city would a situation like this happen. In other cities, one sweep of the enemy radar, and how could anyone hide? As long as you had a breath left, even if you burrowed underground, you'd be dragged out. Continue advancing deeper. Yes, sir. Inside the train car, Chen Meng leaned back in his chair, looking at the blueprint in his hand, not worried about Biaozi and the others at all. After all this time, their practical combat experience was very solid, plus they had the mechas and refrigerators for protection. If something still happened to them in this situation, then they deserved to die. They'd just be trash wasting his resources. Time Rift Detector. A red-grade accessory blueprint. This was the blueprint he brought back from Neon City. To be honest, he didn't understand what this accessory specifically did, much less what a time rift was. But since it was a high-grade accessory blueprint, he definitely couldn't sell it. He had to keep it for his own use. Crafting it required nearly 50,000 units of iron ore. After consuming the required ore, a device resembling a small clock was mounted on the control panel. This was the prototype of the accessory. The effect was very simple. It could detect time rifts within a 10,000-meter radius. The corresponding screen next to it was empty. It wasn't blocked by blurry streaks. It just didn't detect anything. Chen Meng glanced at his remaining iron ore. He wouldn't upgrade it for now. Red-grade accessories were very expensive to upgrade, and he didn't have much money left on hand right now. Before upgrading the train's armor, he had plenty to spare. After the upgrade, he was wiped clean. Thinking about this made him angry again. An armor sold for that much? It was straight-up blood-sucking without blinking an eye. He casually picked up the level 10 binoculars next to him and looked into the distance. When the enemy radar was useless, primitive things like binoculars actually came in handy. This was an item he had just upgraded. He had even upgraded it to level 20 before. Recently, he had crafted a bunch of small miscellaneous items, preparing to list them all in the store. Whether they sold or not was a problem for later. At least it made the inventory look more diverse. Wait a minute. A flash of inspiration struck Chen Meng's mind. He immediately switched to the rabbit cloud wheel mode, flying into midair and heading toward the sky above the Chiu City ruins. He suddenly thought of a possibility. Chiu City blocked the enemy radar. Could it be because a time rift existed there? The stellar flew through the air, gradually advancing deeper into the Chiu City ruins. The time rift detector continued to operate. Just as it was 10,000 meters away from the city center, urgent warning alarms blared inside the train car. Chen Meng looked out the window and saw Biaozi and the others landing on the rooftop of a nearby high-rise building. Then he turned to look at the time rift detector screen. On the screen, a rift resembling a black hole was hovering, slowly spinning. It was entirely composed of countless black particles, looking both eerie and mysterious. He guessed right. There really was a time rift here. Xiao AI, what is a time rift? Unknown. Xiao AI's voice echoed in the train car. There is no relevant information in the database. Chen Meng narrowed his eyes. First, he steered the Stellar over to pick up Biaozi and the others, and then slowly approached the rift displayed on the device. This place was too bizarre. It wasn't suitable for the guard squad to continue exploring. The distance on the screen decreased. When it was less than 100 meters away, he didn't dare advance any further. The naked eye could barely see anything clearly. He could only vaguely sense that the air ahead seemed to be twisting, like the spatial distortion caused by high temperatures. Right after that, boom, 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 a machine cannon aimed straight at the time rift and opened fire. Every shell that flew in instantly vanished in midair, leaving absolutely no trace behind. What a terrifying thing. Chen Meng's desire to explore was piqued. This thing looked very much like a teleportation portal, but it was a completely unknown type of portal. So the teleportation portals of the mechanical civilization were very likely invented through researching time rifts. That is a possibility, Captain. My database truly has no related records. He steered the Stellar closer. This time, it was only about 10 meters away. With his naked eye, he could clearly see the air ahead distorting. Chen Meng immediately stopped, not daring to advance any further. This distance was risky enough. But even so, he only had one thought in his mind. He really wanted to know what exactly was inside this time rift.